Session. This is a hybrid meeting of the City Council. Members of the public can view this meeting live on Channel 8, the city's website, and on YouTube. Live Spanish translation services are being provided for tonight's council meeting by telephone. Please dial 720-386-9023 and use code 104091*. I will now call the study session to order. And our first presentation is Urban Renewal Authority Activities, Programs, and Projects with Garrett Anderson, our Chief Economic Growth Officer. I like that title. Who will give us the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm happy to be here before you tonight to talk a little bit about Derby. We've got a variety of things going on in Derby right now, and we're excited to share some concepts with you that we'd like some feedback on. Each of these is just going to be broad guidance at this point, and each will deserve a lot more study and a return back to Council with some additional guidance at a later date. So don't feel like we need to get everything ironed out right now. We're just looking for some general guidance, and then we'll come back with a lot more at a later date. Broadly, there's a couple different entities that are operating in Derby with different policies, different practices that we'd like to see streamlined a little bit. Some of that governance is, we feel, a little bit outdated or fragmented. So we've got three broad questions that we want to bring before Council tonight that can help us to streamline that and make things just a little bit more efficient as we try to revitalize Derby. This one's just simply an update slide of some of the things. The last time that we came before Council was June of 25 for an update like this on behalf of Derby. So just some of the things, none of these should be surprises. These are all just things that we're working on for these three broad goals, which is that we discussed at that June study session last year, which is safety, business support, and then activation. We've got a lot of initiatives underway, and we feel some of these could use a little bit better, as we talked about, some guidance and structure behind them, because that governance remains misaligned. Why this matters, some coordination. So just some of the areas that we're seeing divergent groups that are working is that we've got a PUD in place, we've got the URA and the city. There's some good design guidelines in place that are a functional part of the PUD, and then there's the Derby Review Board, and then we've got some other internal and external committees that are talking about Derby. Some of that decision making and honestly just slow processes are affecting the possible reinvestments into Derby, and I think some of the things that we're proposing tonight can help streamline and make that just a little bit faster and more unified as we try to move forward. Got my notes over here. I think this would be a good time to just really broadly remind ourselves what TIF and URA do. As you recall, hopefully most of you are familiar with TIF as an economic development tool. TIF is, some people will call it a freeze of the taxes. It's really more of establishing a baseline at the beginning of the TIF process, which in this case was 2008-ish. There's a baseline established that any new growth that goes above that baseline can be reinvested in the district to support the goals of the TIF redevelopment plan. I'll show you on a subsequent slide how that revenue is doing. But in general, the types of agreements we would make with private development entities are intended to overcome obstacles that are keeping an area from developing. We'll also talk on a subsequent slide about blight and what are the defined reasons why something might not be attractive for a private investment. And what we're trying to do is overcome those hurdles, those obstacles that are in the way through incentives by using the very growth that's being created by new development to repay the obstacle, the money, extra money that it's going to cost to overcome those same obstacles. So it's a kind of a circular process. So number one question for us tonight is, should we reevaluate the boundaries of the URA? So right now, the boundaries of the URA are basically north of 72nd Street, west of Magnolia, and then Highway 2 is the triangle that's created by those three streets. The URA has been in place for quite a while. It's been, it's been a modest growth within that area, but are there nearby properties that could also benefit from the tools that are available through the URA? And is this something that we should reevaluate what that looks like? If we were to reevaluate that boundary, the process that it would take is a new blight study. So a blight study is an official step of documenting those specific elements that are, again, keeping development from happening. So let me go through those really quick. The state law allows for 11 of them. Deteriorating structures, ineffective street layout, faulty lot layout. So is the layout of the streets or lots getting in the way of development? Unsanitary or unsafe, deterioration of the site improvements, unusual topography, especially as it relates to utilities, defects in the title, making the land hard to market, dangerous conditions relating to fire hazards, unsafe buildings due to code violations or deterioration, environmental contamination, and then just simply safety and welfare factors that require extra city services to try to address those. So a blight study would say where those things are present in or around Derby and what other land might be appropriate. So that's a conversation we want to have, maybe not right now on this slide, but in a minute. Are there areas adjacent to Derby that we think might be appropriate that would meet these kind of criteria that might be included in the area?
Garrett, if I may, real quick.
Please.
With respect to the blight study, another critical piece when you're thinking about that is under state law, yes, you have 11 criteria that determines whether or not an area has met the definition or the condition of blight. In order to affirm that, 4 of the 11 have to be met, not all of the 11. So 4 of the 11 need to be met in order to affirm an area has been blighted and the establishment of a TIF district can be created. 5 of the 11 allows for you to have eminent domain authority as part of the urban renewal body within that district, and that's important. And because when it comes to eminent domain on being able to look on it, it's the ability to acquire property if it's in the best interest of the urban renewal area plan and the removal of the criteria that had been identified by the blight study. We have plans that have adopted eminent domain for the urban renewal body within that, and we have also adopted plans that do not have that. And it's very dependent upon if you're looking at a site-specific TIF district, thinking about our Sand Creek urban renewal, that is a one singular piece of property with a one singular type of use where there was a development partner who wanted to advance, so there was no need for eminent domain. Whereas a much broader district, a district-wide approach for urban renewal, you may have that depending upon if you have a property that may have been sitting for 5, 10, 15 years and no advancement had been able to move forward, to be able to think about the economic investment and being able to get past that stage. That doesn't need to be made at the time of the blight study, but at some future time in which any adoption of a new urban renewal plan would have to be considered. So, once again, 4 or 5, not all of the 11.
Again, for your consideration, just a little bit of a broader picture of what that will look like overall. Mayor Pro Tem, I think you've got a question from
Councilmember Dukes.
Yeah, thank you. City Manager Rogers, so my understanding with being able to use eminent domain, it's a tool within a toolbox that we can rely on, right? It's not, we lead with that, but it's an opportunity as we think about it.
Yeah, it's just a tool. It doesn't say that you're gonna use it. It just doesn't forbid you or doesn't limit your ability to use it in the future in the appropriate circumstances.
So by going about it and say we do a blight study, we have 5, it actually could open more of a conversation, right, with some of those property owners or some of those land. And if we don't do it, I guess we have to come back later on and think about it in a different manner. Like this,
Yes, you can always amend your urban renewal area plan, and for some municipalities, and I don't want to go down too much of a diatribe, but it really, the determination of whether or not you would modify or change or amend an urban renewal plan was also on the basis of the body that was constructed. You all already have adopted body where you have special taxing entities as part of that. So that's one of the biggest hurdles why people would not take that level of action. So here, it's really about, is it a necessary tool today? And you want to include it so that you can have the sensitive conversations with property owners and others about being able to advance redevelopment opportunities? Or is it something that you consider in the future after enabling some of the other projects, activities, and undertakings as allowed under the statutory law?
So like if we went about, so if we looked at that and they had the 5 indicators and we started the process now, it can give us tools for the future that we may not even use versus like, if we don't look at it now, we'll have to come back and reopen up the conversation again for
Yes.
another blight study and everything, right? Is that?
You wouldn't need to necessarily do a blight study, but you'd have to go back through the public notification process with the URA. That is a part of the steps to get to that new plan.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to go necessarily to that level because you'd have already defined that it had met that criteria. But once again, if you think it's going to be a necessary tool in the future, you might as well include it now, knowing that you may never use it.
Okay, and I have one more question for Garrett. And this might be helpful tell me if it's appropriate to ask the question now or if you're going to talk about it in the slide. One of the challenges and opportunities, I guess, is within the Derby area is if we were to expand it, we have a number of churches, right? And the churches are designated that don't collect property tax, right? Is that correct? And so is that something we'll have to think about, or do you draw around?
Yeah, you just simply draw around them.
You draw around them?
Yeah, it would be, I don't think it would have any detriment to the church if it were included, but broadly speaking, it's not going to be contributing to the URA either. So,
Okay.
yeah, you could just draw around.
So I would say in best practice,
Yeah.
you don't want to necessarily do potholing around
Yeah.
non-taxing entities. You can still include them within the basic because it's 0 of 0 because obviously churches are a non-tax revenue generating use. We're not going to see any contribution on the base TIF or the base increment of that ad valorem tax because it doesn't exist today. So including them doesn't necessarily benefit or harm the city. You have to think about the boundaries because of then really the URA is to help with redevelopment, both vertical or horizontal, both public or private. And the public aspect is that if you don't have roadways or certain infrastructure improvements within the boundary, you then cannot apply those funds to those uses outside of the boundary without some critical justification being made, which is extremely hard. So when you think about the defining of those boundary lines, you want to be mindful and meaningful about where and how those impacts can be applied, not just to the obviously the district as we know it today, but also as we've come to know, how does that then play across streets, how it plays across to park properties that we may then want to invest in.
So the idea of that, if we include them, what I'm hearing you say is we can actually use some of the funding to help with the roads in the area, and then it can actually create more of a cohesion look and feel if that's how we think about drawing the map.
Yeah, in short, if you included both sides of the street and the uses, then you're making sure that it's really clear that you've got the entire street, both sidewalks, all the landscaping, all of that in the URA, which could create an opportunity to invest in those areas.
Yeah, common adage, all boats rise on that tide.
Okay.
So if you're including those properties in that, it's going to help benefit that across that district. So whether or not it's a roadway that's off of Magnolia or within the heart, it's going to help the overall district in its revenue generation of TIF that can then be repurposed and reintegrated into the district.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Garrett, so by doing this, including the area, I was thinking that on both sides of 72nd from Quebec all the way down to Brighton Boulevard, because there's businesses on both sides. Would that be okay to go out just to spread that out, include the businesses along that corridor. That could be looking at TIF funding and maybe getting if it works out well, getting like maybe a circular shuttle to take people around so they could, catch a shuttle and shop those areas.
Yeah, I think it's certainly worth evaluating. What I was just starting to say was just painting the picture of what the process would look like. Very, very minimum, it would take at least 6 months, more likely about a year. Really 5 steps. First step would be public outreach, talk to the neighbors, talk to the property owners, do some research on our own on what the values and one of the things we're trying to do is demonstrate that there's not a lot of economic growth already in the area. And that's why we're trying to put these tools in place. So we want to do some of that research ahead of time, then leading to the second step, which would be the blight study. Third step is the redevelopment plan, where we start to document what we've heard from the public, what our goals are, into how are we going to address these blighting issues and come up with solutions. Fourth would be negotiating with our property tax partners, like the county, the schools, et cetera, making sure that everybody's on the same page on what the goals are and what the funds are being used for. And then finally, a series of public hearings. So that would include both the City Council and the URA, as well as the Plan Commission. So that's roughly the 5-step process. It'd probably take roughly a year. But yeah, to your point, Mayor, the very first step there would be evaluate what are the opportunities. What are the areas that we think might be beneficial to include or not include? What are the specific goals? What do the community think? What are they pointing to as the opportunities? And that would be the first step.
And just as a final point, Mayor, I appreciate thinking about the size and thinking about the boundary layers. I think it's also critical to keep in mind that you can get too big with a district, which can tip scales on being able to meet that criteria of blight, but also there's a way of being able to strike a balance because of the incorporation or the inclusion of residential versus the straight commercial aspect of it, and the sensitivity around the purpose and the intentionality of how you're going to use those projects and undertakings, where we're projecting a 1-year time frame, but if you're also trying to seek with development without displacement and having to communicate that to a residential population, there's going to be a level of perception and or concern that you're going to spend a little bit more of a deliberative conversation with them, which will probably extend out past that 12-month period. And something that you can't overlook is that negotiation of TIF agreements with the other entities about what is going to be the collection of their millage that will go back into the district. And that in and of itself is a level of complexity depending upon how you are positioning the discussion and the purpose behind it. So there are variables in that, and a lot of that can come down to how you size the district and how you think about the boundaries and the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish with that district in those various discussions.
Thank you. Commissioner Henson, we haven't started the URA yet, so your question will have to wait until we start the URA meeting. I wanted to point out that we're not looking at a Google map of this area, and I think that's really important considering it's highly populated, a lot of
This
homes.
particular slide has a map if you'd like.
Okay, but we're not seeing all the homes in the area that are just on the other side of Magnolia or just on the other side behind Our Lady Mother of the Church. So I think it's important for people when we're talking about expanding an urban renewal area and blighting that we may be talking about homes. I don't want this discussion to occur without a complete understanding of the neighborhood that we're looking at here. I think that's problematic. And the other is that when we were having our meeting last Friday, and you had mentioned the flock cameras and that they had been discussed on June 25th, there isn't anything in our June 25th presentation with the Planning Commission that mentioned flock cameras. So I don't know when that occurred because we don't do minutes at study sessions.
June
but it wasn't there. I would presume that it must be because of the 3.5 square mile and that Derby fell into the 3.5 square mile area. Is that what happened?
Yeah, the intent of this list on this slide was just to talk about the things that we've been doing in Derby since that
Right,
25th,
I understand.
And
But
we've
we,
had a conversation about, just at the last meeting, about potential expansion of Flock, and that's just one of the areas we've talked about. So not really intending to make any specific proposal at this point. We're just updating on the things that are going on in Derby.
okay, because it's important since Our Lady Mother of the Church is directly across the street.
Sure, yeah.
And the Monsignor made very specific comments on it that talked about his parishioners being concerned. So my concern about doing this new area is having a purpose, a point of view. There's no purpose or point of view that we're discussing. What do we want it to be? What do we want this area to be? I think we've discussed it as a central gathering place. If it's a central gathering place, then it doesn't need to be large. It just needs to fulfill that purpose. Maybe that's all we're talking about. If you're talking about putting in high rises, then it's a whole other story. Then it's a different discussion. So I would say that I'm still back in the days of central gathering place for Commerce City. I always agreed with Councilmember Young, who sees art as a catalyst. I could see cultural things in that area. I love the business that has the murals and all that kind of thing. I would be worried about getting out ahead of our skis on this, especially since we have the railroad track on one side and that area is practically pockmarked on the west side with unincorporated Commerce City property. So it's kind of complicated. I'm worried about the homeowners and so on. Mayor Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor
Oh, wait,
Pro Tem.
excuse me. Before I take you for the second round, Councilmember Radiola hasn't spoken yet.
Thank you. I kind of like expanding because I've talked to businesses on the other side of Highway 2 that all the way go to Ivy. Also, even up a little bit further north. And then even east, because there's some businesses that have just been blocked up or and the biggest concern from the UR or the Derby Review Board was safety, and one person even said that the laundromat, it's cheaper to keep it boarded up than to put anything there, right? So I would be in favor of seeing not too big of an expansion, but really looking at where those businesses are. Because the businesses on the west side of Highway 2 that I spoke to, a number of them are like, why don't we have the same access that the other, especially the Spanish-speaking businesses? So I would like to see, like, how do we expand just a little bit to make it, and then the opportunity, right? I also agree that we have to look at the art, but I also think we have to look at our demographics and cater to that. Who goes to Derby right now, right? We talk about different things, theater, this, that demographics, which is my demographics, don't go, right? So what are they gonna go there? So I think we have to look at the whole situation there of what kind of cultural events would bring people there and people that could walk there. So I would be fine with expanding it depending on how far, but especially with the businesses that I've reached out to, and they were like, why don't we get those services? So.
If I may, I think what will drive the bus on expansion is what the blight study is able to support. I think that's an important piece because if you're thinking about a tool to help with the revitalization and redevelopment, that tool is going to be relied upon what that blight study says. So if the blight study says you can go 1, 2, 3 blocks to the west or to the east, then I think that's a data point for your consideration. It doesn't mean that you establish that as the boundary district, but you know to the extent of where and how far you can go in thinking about the improvements that fall within the district. The question around the vision and what it is to be done, I think is, policy question number 2. Do you want to change the PUD? The PUD is the zoning police powers of what you can and cannot do and when you can and how you can do that. So it does in and of itself effectuate the bigger picture that comes out of the comprehensive plan. Now, between the comprehensive plan and your PUD, could you say that you're missing a step? Absolutely, right? We've talked about things like specific plans, things that are very direct and speak to the harmonizing and the cultural and the opportunities that, really refine that vision to where then when you get to that PUD or straight zoning or whatever is the appropriate instrument in effectuating the zoning to capture that aspect, that specific plan becomes your guiding document, becomes a talking point to the community. It's something that the community can just say, it's just not this on a map that allows these broad uses. It's more defined. It talks about the design character. It talks about all of these aspects. But that is where you really start to lean into what do you want that area to be. Those can operate in parallel. They don't need to be sequential as far as the blight study and working through the rezoning and the specific plan aspect of Derby, but they will be able to inform each other at the appropriate milestones when you get to those stages about the boundaries, about the uses within the boundary, about the protection of uses within that, or the allowance and the incentivization through the permitting process and or the approval of certain uses versus not to really embolden that. So, what you're talking about right now is something that's governed and driven by state law, and whether or not you want us just to look at that area or a larger area. We're not asking for where that larger area falls right now because the study will tell us where that boundary could fall.
City Manager Rogers, do we have information on the PUD, what's in the PUD?
We did not go through an exact examination. We have talked about the PUD. I couldn't call out, since you went there, I can't call out specifically what the majority would like or would not like. That's a conversation that we'd want to dive into you. That's beyond the veil of this one today. We'd want that direction so that we can then really tailor make that and then go out to the community, the businesses that would be impacted, the property owners that would be impacted, and to be able to get their general feedback on that because they're the ones who are going to have to live it.
Okay, I think my question was about the existing PUD. What are the uses in the existing PUD? And secondarily, typically you need the property owners to want to change the PUD. The city doesn't change the PUD, so how would that occur?
So you all have the authority under the Land Development Code to initiate a rezoning of property. It is no different than a rezoning of the property that is currently established, that has the PUD established over Derby. Now, I think what I just shared is that, no, I do not have a list of the uses because, once again, that's a more deliberative and a different conversation than the one that we've posed to you all tonight. And that's one that we want to have because ultimately then we'd have to have that with the broader community at large. But as is allowed, either the community development director can initiate a zoning, city council can initiate a zoning, or a or a property owner within a district can initiate a zoning, but that would only be specifically for their property. So what we're talking about here is specifically within that boundary, and that's specifically governed by that PUD, is whether or not the council would want the city to take that step, which is a part of our already existing authority.
Okay, we have 15 minutes until the next meeting begins, but I have 4 people who wish to speak. So we want to let everyone get a chance to speak. Councilmember Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess I'm just wondering if it makes sense for us to hold our questions and allow Mr. Anderson the ability to complete his presentation. I just feel like I want to be respectful of his time as well, and perhaps some of the questions that we have will be answered with his presentation.
Thank you. Councilmember Dukes.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I can hold my question.
Okay. Mayor Douglas?
Yes, I understand about holding questions, but it came up about the flock study and, initiating that. And my question is, have you talked to the business owners in that area about the installation of flock and where they would be positioned? And that's I just want to get a clarification on that, please. Thank you.
Are you asking if we've had a direct conversation with the business owners around Flock?
Yes,
And I guess I'm just trying to understand, Mayor,
with this program,
with this program.
yes.
I'm trying to understand the correlation of Flock to the conversation around, do you want another 25 years of a TIF district? Do you want to amend the zoning? And/or the third piece being the Derby Review Board?
I think he's referring to the slide that was presented by Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, the additional flock cameras.
Would you explain again, like, the purpose of the slide?
Yeah, again, Mayor, the slide was just demonstrating some of the activities that have been going on in Derby since the last time we gave a Derby update to the council, which was the summer of last year. It's not intended to debate or comment on any of those items, just a update of activities since the last time we gave an update.
Okay. And I appreciate that, but like I said, Mayor Pro Tem noted, and I looked back to, it was never brought up about the flock cameras. Crime prevention unit, yes, because we do have an area of officers that are stationed down there. So my question is, have we talked to the businesses down there about the potential of installing flock cameras in Derby?
I can't say that specifically, Mayor, but I would say that would be an appropriate conversation when that item is presented to the URA, when that item requesting funding for that use comes forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Councilmember Kim?
Mr. Anderson, yes, I think a blight study should be done. I think to understand the impacts behind it altogether, for it to come before council at some point. That's all.
Councilmember Gardillo?
Thank you. I've spoken with 6 companies down there about Flock, and they are all supportive. I'm there every Saturday and Sunday, and the 6 that I talked about support Flock. So I have talked to them. Every Saturday I get my haircut there, and then I go eat breakfast and get my chicharrones, and then Sunday I get my menudo, and I go to another one. So 6 companies total that I've spoken with said they support Flock in Derby.
And isn't there, how does this address the homelessness issue in that area?
So effectively, homelessness is not a definable criteria under the statutory allowance for an urban renewal authority. Once again, it's physical impediments and we can provide that list to you at a future date again about that criteria. The social economic issues with what an individual may experience is something that is not a consideration, nor should it be a consideration of a URA district. And the implementation or the effectuation of various tools and/or regulations that a municipality may have at its leisure. So to that is something that operates outside of that veil, in which we've been doing and continuing to operate as effectively as we can with respect to civil rights and other, and like I said, other regulations and policies that we have. So this is really focusing on the built environment and removing those impediments within that built environment to achieve a new state, a future state, that is able to accomplish the goals of the city.
Okay, thank you. They don't have license plates anyway, so that would work out. Councilmember Dukes?
Thank you. Policy question number 2, I think we kind of talked about that, but policy question number 3 on your slide. I'm curious around I've heard this as well, the structure. Can you talk more about the governance structure and what's needed here?
If you don't mind talking just a little bit about policy question number 2, yeah, as many of you are aware, there's a design guideline that goes along with this PUD that really points development toward 50s vision of retro 50s kind of thing, and I think that's one of the main things that's the problem with the PUD. Is I don't think it really fits our current vision for the district. So I think there's some work that needs to be done there. So that's really the bottom line with that update. To answer your question, the Derby Review Board has been established as a city board that is building off of what I just said, that 50s vision. They're tasked with 3 things. One is hearing development review and making sure it meets that 50s vision. Number 2, hearing variances and making sure they hit the 50s vision. And number 3 is what's called our Derby Catalyst Fund, that is, small business grants basically to businesses so that they can meet that 50s vision. So if we're not that excited about that 50s vision anymore, then all 3 of the major functions of the Derby Review Board are not really functioning as they should, right? So that's one of the issues with the governance over there. Also, the type of catalyst fund that we do is very common in URAs. They're often referred to as facade grants, which is just if the way TIF works is to reinvest in properties so that they become more valuable, which flows more money into the URA. That type of facade reinvestment is super common in TIFs, especially downtowns like this. But in almost every other case I can think of, they are run by the URA itself rather than by the city. In our case, the funding for these type of catalyst grants comes from the city rather than the URA, and the governance of who administers those grants is by this Derby Review Board, which is a city commission rather than a URA commission. So I think that's another recommendation is we do like the idea of a facade grant and that type of assistance for the business owners, but it probably should be administered through the URA rather than through the city. I think there is a role for the community itself to have a Derby-related downtown commission kind of a board, but perhaps instead of a administrative review of development proposals, maybe it's more of a how do we activate the district? How do we do more events? How do we get more cultural activities? That kind of element of activation rather than an extra partially unnecessary review step in our development review process, which is what the Derby Review Board does right now.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? When you think about the review board and the governance structure and then the blight study, what's their next steps? Like what comes first, and what do we have to have the structure in place before you do the study? And then can you kind of talk through what the...
Yeah, great question. I think those can be done independently. I think we can work towards a activation style committee for Derby independently of the blight study. I think the Derby Review Board currently is tied to the PUD and specifically those design guidelines of the PUD. So those two could probably align pretty closely. That step 2 and step 3 in this case, but step 1 would be fairly independent. Do you agree?
I think, well, step 1 will inform step 2. Well, policy question 1 and policy question 2 are more interrelated. Those I think will inform one another. Like I say, the Derby Review Board is separate and apart, fully, I would say does not have any bearing on 1 or 2 because of its current structure and formation under code and the limitation of its authorities and its powers under code. And the question is, if you all are seeking to give it broader powers, then you need to take a process, you need to take into consideration whether or not you need to sunset the Derby Review Board to reimagine it in a different capacity. And whether or not that capacity is quasi-judicial, similar to like a planning commission review of greater applications as opposed to just facade landscape improvements for what we've currently seen. But even in this current iteration, that is even outside of its authorities as written by code today, even though its practice isn't in alignment. So that goes back to his initial recommendation of, is it more appropriate to have that functionality under a reimagined Derby Review Board under the auspices of the URA to be able to execute those funds that currently sit within its funds? Or do you look at it more differently, more broadly, to give you all advisement as some of your other boards and commissions and committees to be thinking about the bigger and the longer term vision?
And one last question to that.
I'm sorry, I need to move to the policy questions, and then if there's time, we can come back to it. Because we only have 3 minutes left before the next meeting starts. Can we just move to the next questions, Councilmember Dukes? You have enough information to be able to make
do
any
not.
decisions?
I do not.
All right, Councilmember Dukes, if you need more information, please go forward.
Thank you. So as far as the 50s design, we did 3 comprehensive plans on Derby, and they renewed. Do we have to sunset the comprehensive plan to create a new vision before we actually are able to talk about the PUD? Like, what's the sequence there? I guess I wouldn't want to have to do another comprehensive plan on Derby if we don't have to, but like, I'm curious about that.
So you do not need to sunset the comprehensive plan that was most recently adopted. Once again, the design guidelines are a reference within the PUD document that interplay with each other, so there's that intersection. So if you're going to be updating the design guidelines, those design guidelines will then be effectuated or have power through that zoning document that will be able to reinforce. So when you change the PUD to whatever appropriate instrument that's provided under our land development code, you would then in lockstep amend the design standards to be more contemporary, more modern, a combination thereof, so that they're being ratified or they're being adopted at the same time.
Okay, thank you. And I think he might be referring to the Derby Master Plan that was done long time ago. All right, we have policy questions to look at. Would you like to go to that slide?
I believe we're on there now, yes.
Okay, you may go.
So question
Excuse me,
number one.
Councilmember Trujillo, did you have more information you need?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to try to make this real quick, and I don't know that it necessarily has to be addressed today, but the county has initiated the process in establishing a county revitalization authority, which actually does not use the blight criteria. It focuses more on opportunities and for growth, right? I'm wondering if there's any possibility to collaborate when we're talking about boundaries, collaborate with the county on some of these things.
Yeah, it's our understanding that that tool is really intended for areas outside of municipal boundaries. So it wouldn't be able to be applied in
Okay.
this particular district.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. By Jove, is that it for everyone? All right.
So the questions are up on the screen there. First is, do we want to dig into evaluating blight in the areas around the existing PUD area and come back with some recommendations and reports?
Okay. I don't know how this isn't considered voting, but
It's a,
it's a little, it looks like voting to
it
me.
would inform a fair amount of work for our staff, so we just want to make sure that we have your, general consensus before we dive into it.
Okay, it looks like you had the general consensus there. All right, then. I am in favor of initiating a PUD amendment, however.
Yeah, so this is question number 2 is PUD amendment. Broadly speaking, the PUD itself is actually, I think, a really high-quality document. I think it's mostly those design guidelines is the part that is troublesome. But we would review both, of course, if that sounds like something that you think we should be working on.
Okay, that's good with everyone also? Yes. Although I wasn't in favor of the blight study, but it doesn't matter because you had consensus.
If I may,
Yeah.
just to make sure that there's a clear understanding of how this will proceed, because I think it's important to understand what we're asking you all to give consideration as far as for my team to take to the next step is, if you're looking for us to initiate a blight study, right? And the question for us is, to what scalability of a blight study that you would like the city to consider to bring forward to you all, and whether or not you all then want to engage into the next step. So is initiating a blight study based on the existing boundaries that you would like us to explore and to further define, or a broader area, or something that's more construct or contracted within our existing boundaries that's very targeted to certain parcels? Now, I ask this because that will then inform the discussions that we have with vendors who do this and are able then to apply the appropriate 11 criteria under state law.
Okay, Mayor Douglas had his hand up. Mayor Douglas, did you have your hand up? Did you wish to speak?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I agree with the blighted study, but I thought that we went away from the 50s theme because it didn't work.
We have not, because the document hasn't been amended or repealed or rescinded and replaced with new design guidelines. It's always been a topic of discussion in the 7 years that I've been here, but there's been no formative action taken for us to do anything about it.
Okay, I would like to see if we can move in that direction to look at, getting out of that 50s theme, because that's not what this area is, the culture. So, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the PUD amendment, correct?
That would be a part of the PUD amendment.
All righty, Councilmember Kim.
I'd like to see a full and broader range on the blight study, so that we can make an informed decision at that point as far as understanding the data and to analyze that data as well.
So to that, what we would typically do, because just thinking about the steps in the process, and obviously the
City Manager Rogers, I just want to say I have 3 more people who wish to speak, and we have a URA meeting to begin at 6:45. So try to keep it as tight as possible.
I appreciate that, ma'am. I just want to say that we're noticed to start earlier or later than that, and that's how we've had our agendas. But to the point of the question is that if you all want us to explore a broader boundary, we would design a framework of what that study would include, the cost of that study, and whether or not if we could cover that cost or would need some form of an appropriation to do so. But we would want to take an affirmative action in a motion by council for us to actually initiate that. Once again, what we're here trying to find out is whether or not there is a general consensus that if you do want us to do that, you all have some information that we can bring back to you rather quickly so that you can then take an affirmative action on to say, city manager, go do a blight study, and if I need funding, prepare an ordinance for an appropriation in the dollar amount of X. That is the next step.
Councilmember Sandoval.
I just wanted to add, so at the federal level, we have what are considered hub zones, and hub zones are very specific to like certain areas. And so sometimes there's little pockets within areas that are considered blighted. And so for that reason, I would recommend expanding it beyond just the current boundary, because you might have pockets where it's important to look and consider. So that would be my only suggestion and recommendation.
Councilmember Guardiola? I'm not getting it out this time. Councilmember Guardiola.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd be supportive of a broader study.
Okay. Councilmember Kim, did you have your hand up again, or did I not erase you? All righty, Councilmember Dukes.
City Manager Rogers, so for clarification, you will give a recommendation on how broad this blight study will be, and it will come back to us, and you give us multiple options. Is that what I'm hearing?
So we will establish what is the maximally supportable boundary
Okay.
for the URA, and then you can think about how you would like to establish a district within that.
And then with that, it'll show the cost of max. Okay, yeah, I'm in favor of that.
All right, question number 3 was about governance and just how do we work together with the Derby Review Board, the URA, the city, et cetera.
To put a finer point, what would you like to do with the Derby Review Board? Keep it in its current iteration, terminate the Derby Review Board, and to think about its roles, responsibilities, and duties, which is obviously a process I would engage with the city attorney to bring an appropriate recommendation back to you. But we need to understand from a policy perspective, what is your desire with the Derby Review Board and its current status and its current operation?
Okay, thank you very much. And for our commissioners, for our members of the Urban Renewal Authority, I just wanted to let you know that I have 6 people who wish to speak. The city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to clarify for council. So the Derby Review Board was established by way of an ordinance. It's a relatively easy fix to amend and change the makeup of the Derby Review Board. The establishment and the powers in the existing ordinance are very small. They're very limited. It states that it's established for the purpose of interpreting and applying the Derby design guidelines to development in the Derby sub-area. That is it. That is the intent of that. I think we have been speaking about the Derby Review Board in a much grander sort of scope of how can we use that body to think about future development and revitalization within the community. I certainly think you can do that by way of amending the scope of that group. For council consideration, one thing we could do is have a future study session where staff has identified the potential of that scope. It would certainly benefit staff to understand from council some parameters that you think would be helpful, or to get rid of it. I mean, I think you could get rid of it pretty easily, but it sounds like from what I've heard over the last several months, there is an interest in having some kind of border commission that is very focused on revitalizing that area.
I just have a question based on your comments, Mr. Zarzaki, which is what happens in the vacuum if there is no board?
It's a good question. So technically, if you were to get rid of the board, then there is no governing authority to apply the design standards as they currently exist in the PUD, right? So you would want to do that in conjunction with an amendment to a PUD if you were going to get rid of the review board. If you were going to expand the scope, then you're not necessarily getting rid of the part of the authority to review the design guidelines. So you could do it, you could expand the scope, amend the PUD, and then rid of the review for the design guidelines thereafter with another ordinance change.
Expanding would be good. There were a lot of architects who like to be part of that. Okay. We have repeat speakers. Councilmember Guardiola.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. I would like to sunset the Derby Review Board and kind of move it all under the URA to be more efficient. I think maybe even add a couple residents to the URA if that's possible. And then I like the Business Owner Advisory Committee for the events and kind of what's going on.
Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you. I agree with that switch. I guess the order of operations to the attorney would be, we have to have, if we move it under the URA, we'll have to have an ordinance change in general, right? And so I'm curious, do we need to have a study session to talk about the scope before, just those steps? I'm in favor of it. I'm just like the process.
Sure. You do not have to. Okay. It was a thought of allowing you all the opportunity to understand, you're moving puzzle pieces around. So the last thing we want is for something to fall through the cracks. But no, you do not have to have a study session. certainly can rid of the review board by way of an ordinance change. You can expand the scope by an ordinance change. Or you can have a study session to talk about what that change is going to look like.
And I guess I lean towards having a study session to talk about the change so that we can have a collective just discussion about Derby. And then the other piece would be an opportunity to communicate it to our community that this change is coming and that we're not just sunsetting it. Because there has been some members that have been actively involved for a number of years and they value it. So we want to be able to say, hey, this is where we want to go. Maybe get some input from community. City Manager Rogers.
Hopefully I'm not getting too far out over my skis on this thought, but there's nothing suggesting that you couldn't have depending on the makeup of the membership and how active that they've been to this point with the Derby Review Board, the URA, and the City Council all having a joint study session to talk through what may be a transition of the existing body to a new role, to understand that perspective, how that plays in with, the effectuation of the URA urban renewal plan around those projects, activities, undertakings, and so forth as allowed by state law. And then you'll have that consensus of the three bodies on then how to proceed with the termination to an establishment and to a transition.
I'm in favor of that. My only caveat would be, just want to make it happen sooner than later. Like there's urgency of it. And so I like the idea, if that's okay with the other colleagues, but I just want to make sure it's sooner than later, if we could do that.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Quickly, I am in favor of a joint study session and also keeping our voices in that community involved and moving it under the URA. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have enough to go on?
Yes, thank you for your feedback.
All right.
Everybody feel uncomfortable over there?
Okay, study session. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Then we are adjourning the study session for a moment to open the Urban Renewal Authority meeting. We're now going to recess to the URA meeting. Council will return immediately following the URA meeting, which is estimated to last until at least 7:30. It is now 6:58. Thank you. So I will call the URA meeting to order and ask the secretary to call roll, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Chair Douglas,
Present.
Vice Chair Noble,
Present.
Commissioner Guardiola,
Present.
Commissioner Teeter,
Present.
Commissioner Sandoval,
Present.
Commissioner Kim. Here. Commissioner Dukes,
Present.
Commissioner Trujillo,
Here.
Commissioner Young,
Present.
Commissioner Henson,
Here.
Commissioner Amador, Commissioner Machuga.
Here.
All right, thank you. I'm looking for a motion and a second to excuse the members not present. Councilmember Dukes,
So moved.
Councilmember Sandoval.
Second.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to excuse the members not present. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All righty. I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes, please. Councilmember Dukes,
So moved.
and do I have a second, please? Councilmember Young. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Young.
I second.
Thank you. All right, the motion on the floor is to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, that passes as well, unanimously. All righty, now we're moving to something very familiar. We will have gotten most of our questions out of our systems. All right, Urban Renewal Authority activities, programs, and projects. And I'm now inviting Garrett Anderson to stay where you are, our Chief Economic Growth Officer, to give the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Just one slide here, just a quick reminder of some of the roles and responsibilities. So the zoning and those kind of questions that we've been talking about are more the purview of the city. The URA, more in specific, is going to be talking about the financial reinvestment in the area, in particular infrastructure and other things. So that's really our next two questions for you. Are both about that reinvestment into the zone and the infrastructure. So first question is, the city itself usually operates a really robust capital improvement CIP plan every year. We've not really developed that kind of thing for Derby in particular through the URA. Wondering if that's something you would enjoy participating in developing and having us develop is a URA specific capital plan. That's question number one. Question number two is, should we, as a part of that, be considering some actual property acquisition so that we can take a more direct role in the redevelopment of some of these areas? Let's stick with in Derby this one, but in other URAs in the future, we can talk about that too. But that's a two-part question: is should we be developing a CIP plan, and should we be taking a little bit more active role in acquisition? Anything else, City Manager?
Thank you, sir. I think just to put a final point on the number one, CIP planning, this is a unique tool that's offered through the URA as part of its activities and undertakings, in which one that I've implemented in a former life, to where the CIP that could occur within the Derby is a relief to the overall city CIP planning, functioning, and dollars and expenditures, because, right, you're reinvesting the revenue that's being generated within that district back into that public infrastructure. What is not commonly known is that once you improve the public infrastructure within a URA district, it actually increases the taxable assessment, because those improvements are helping to remove those barriers of blights. So it's viewed as a net positive. So as we say, all ships rise, when we see the bricks, for instance, replaced, that public improvement is going to increase the perception of the value of properties within the district, increasing the revenue driven to then put that revenue back into the district to do other public improvements. So if you have a renewable source in which this can serve for a 25-year period, you're able then to establish a CIP planning process that can then rely on that collateral, being that TIF revenue, to issue TIF revenue bonds, because you'll be able to pay off that debt or be able to use the funds that have been collected over that 25-year period into some of those larger projects. So that's part of the benefit that you're able to get of, doing a CIP planning process within that district. Similarly with redevelopment, is that there is a more expediency and navigable state of being able to try to be more in a development state than just a entitling and permitting state in a URA. It's not uncommon for a URA to enter into a JV, a joint venture, with a private developer as a property owner, and devising a plan of what they would like for that property to be developed as, and be able to think about land bases, write-downs, and other incentivization that makes it enticing for someone to redevelop a piece of property. That is not something that a general municipal government, like a city government, has the authority or the ability to do. So, the URA has, handful of additional tools in its toolkit. We've never fully explored how to utilize them, particularly broadly across all of our districts, or even just in Derby. And this kind of dates back, or refers back to, the conversation that we were leading in with last June around getting out of the box thinking on how to apply ourselves more inherently, or more importantly, into that district about our activities and positioning of properties and or infrastructure through the sources of revenue that we have or can have, as we think about new blight study and the extension of that TIF district.
All right, I'm going to go to Commissioner Henson first because she had her hand up a while ago. Commissioner Henson, did your question or your comment get addressed during the previous conversation with the City Council?
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to share a little bit of my thoughts, having been through similar processes on Thornton City Council with our South Thornton URA, with redevelopment of the Thornton Shopping Center, a project some of you may be familiar with. I do support, as has been stated, I would support a renewed blight study, not just to examine the boundaries, but also to measure the blight from your previous study. Because what we had, in my experience, what we found in Thornton was that the only thing that changed between two blight studies, sadly, was not the need to change the boundary, but that conditions inside that study had worsened. The properties had not been maintained, and our URA had not been funded in the appropriate way to make the changes inside the URA boundary. That was a situation unique to Thornton based on a council vote back in 2012. But I highly recommend a renewed blight study, examining the boundaries. Should the blight study recommend expanding the boundaries of your current URA, and making sure that you have your, everybody understands the TIF, the increment, the base and the increment financing, and you can make an appropriate budget based on a renewed blight study, because a study from 2009 is not going to be accurate enough to build a really strong budget going forward to get the redevelopment and the revitalization that we're all going to be hoping for in the Derby area. So I would just support all of that. And again, and agree, the CIP planning, once you get your budget worked out for the URA after the blight study, it can alleviate funding crunches in other parts of your budget for projects that fall outside of the URA. So great conversation, and I do support these steps I've just outlined. Thank you so much for the opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Dukes.
Thank you. I support the CIP, and I want to make sure, or CIP recommendation to move forward in Derby. My understanding with this, and I've seen it in other cities where we don't have a BID. And so in some ways, the benefit of having a BID, a Business Improvement District, they're able to have a coordinated effort to understand how to redo a certain area of a city, right? I think about Montrose, or think about North Aurora. They just passed that big initiative, and then also in downtown Arvada. Ours is a little different. But, and I guess correct me if I'm wrong, the ability to do a CIP list with our Urban Renewal Authority, it accomplishes a very similar approach of saying we're going to have a collective effort within that part, or identified part of our city, so that we can actually have some cohesion and conversations with the urban renewal dollars and the CIP. It's going to help us move forward a little quicker. Is that correct?
Correct. And, I'm not trying to be short-sighted. I'm not trying to be flippant on this, but if you don't spend it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So while you have a fund balance at the end of that 25-year period, as required by state law, you return what has not been expended in that revenue back to the taxing entities in which we have been able to collect as far as that revenue for that period of time. So the CIP planning process is, to me, that coordinated, consolidated discussion of how to utilize the dollars and to maximize those dollars while we have the access and the availability of those revenues. And like I said, it's not a diversion, it is revenue that's generated by the district, but there is a responsibility for those revenues that have not been expended, that they are returned or that they are provided back to the taxing entities as future revenue at that period of year 26. So.
And to follow up to that, I guess my assumption is that this helps address one of the root causes in Derby where we haven't been able to move as fast, or we haven't moved in terms of infrastructure or development as fast as we want because of lack of coordination and lack of maybe direction. This might help address that.
Partially. I mean, I think if we're really going to drill into it, there's still an underlying issue to Derby, right? What the TIF revenue generation relies on is redevelopment, new development, repurposing of existing space. We have not seen that on a scale that has been consistent, that has been positive towards the growth of that revenue to really to generate the conversations around how to move forward with infrastructure projects. So, we are doing the best with what's being generated within the district because of the existing vertical development. But since there's been very little to no activity by the property owners in Derby, it has caused an issue in that district being able to realize its potential. And there's conversations that need to be had with the property owners on, do they buy into the vision that the city wants to bring forward, and can they see value in the value proposition behind that, to get behind knowing that where the land basis in Derby right now is relatively low, it will not be that after you improve and develop that area different to what you all are wanting to accomplish. So there's a loggerhead there. And the only way to get past that loggerhead to get to doing some of these improvements, because you're not going to be able to take out debt, you're not going to be able to repay these if you're not going to be able to have the revenue to show as the collateral for that. So that is on its face a philosophical conversation that has to be had with the property owners within that district to buy into that future vision and to see it through and to be able to look at some of that risk reward.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Oh, Councilmember Dukes is back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's important for us to ask the question. So I know it may be a burden for some that I'm asking questions, but it's important that we talk about Derby because this has been an issue that we've heard so many times. And so I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the decisions that we're making. What I'm hearing is the opportunity to have the CIP helps us reinvest into that part of our city while still having the conversations with the land owners, right, and the building owners. And it's a different approach, because before we were just waiting for the conversation with the landowners and the TIF approach. And so this is actually a hybrid of both, right? Is that, because we can use that investment towards the equity into that area. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a trust and a verify. Say, hey, we're going to put our money where our mouth is by investing in the improvements that we can with the dollars that we have, and in that it's going to benefit you. But in turn, we would love for you all to come along in that journey with us in reimagining the Derby district from what you can control within the borders of your private property.
And then how do we balance that with some of the residents in the area? So as we are beginning to do upgrades with the CIP, will this be a part of the conversation outreach with residents so that I guess the fear would be we move forward with our CIP list and we have a lot of improvements, and it's going to create different property values, and it's going to create some fear of gentrification. Like, how do we approach that with this approval?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the current boundary on your map, there's very little to no residential. What you're thinking about are the pockets of the residential that are outside the district around it, and how those improvements around the district may benefit them. But what you're really thinking about is the business community, because this, in a sense, is a business improvement district, but under the auspices and the regulations of a URA, because of just how it's currently constructed. You can broaden that, what we'll be looking at, but I think that's when that conversation will come to head about, hey, residential 2 blocks over, let's talk about what the public improvements could be in front of your home. Complete sidewalks, widen sidewalks, street lights.
And part of this process, will you be able to do outreach to neighborhoods? Because, for example, we've done, Denver has activated neighborhood gathering spaces, whereas Fairfax area, or et cetera. And so I know the neighborhoods have actually been positively impacted, but is our plan to actually so neighborhoods outside of this this triangle, like if we look at other parts of Denver, that's what happened, Oneida Street, for example. Will we have conversations with the neighbors across or next to it as well?
I think you have to.
Okay.
I just think you have to, because if you don't, if, let's say something does happen along Magnolia Street, and those property values rise, right? Those property values
too will, right.
don't stop at the center line of the street. They will bleed over into the residential neighborhood, which could then lead to development, from the development or displacement because the values of land now have affected those homes. So there's a sensitivity in how you approach that and the timing in which you approach that. And that's one that we work through, or I've worked through in the past with our vendors on how best to navigate that, because it is complex. It's not always for certain. And the timing in which that can occur may or may not happen in which that property owner is currently within it. So there's a lot of variables that we tease out and then think about how we approach that, both statutorily because we're required to, but then as well as just being a good neighbor about how to go about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to Commissioner Henson. And then if you have more questions, Commissioner Dukes, we can come back to you, okay? Commissioner Henson.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to make sure I realize I might be making some assumptions based on previous experiences. Is this URA, is it a traditional TIF financing with the increment over the base being reinvested inside the boundaries of this area?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming this is a commercial district that does not include any residential?
That is correct.
Okay, right. And then, so is there a strategic plan? Is there a strategic plan that the city has been operating off of as you plan your reinvestment into the district?
We've identified a handful of improvements based on the current boundaries, which is obviously looking at roadway infrastructure improvements around for drainage and for community appearance, that being the bricks within the Monaco 72nd, exploration of traffic signal participation along the 72nd Avenue corridor, as well as a lighting study that was both not just from public safety, but also from an eclectic nature to help bring eyes to that district as people are driving by east, west, north, south. And that's been primarily the three potential public improvements that have been bandied around. If we had a redevelopment opportunity, you could talk about a parking structure, you could talk about other things, but we've not advanced to that stage because we've not had those formative discussions as of late.
Okay, and thank you. And I've heard reference to a design plan or something that is a sort of a retro kind of design plan that maybe there's
yes.
Commissioners are curious, or members of the body are curious whether there's actually buy-in from the business owners on that.
There's not a lot of buy-in on the Googie architecture, which is defined within our PUD. That is that 50s architecture that is whimsical and to the ages of almost Art Deco-ish, but that doesn't necessarily resonate with the business owners, and it's quite costly to do that level of type of architectural definition in today's market. So it hasn't gained a lot of traction, which is why you haven't seen a lot of facade improvements or exterior building improvements in the last 4 years.
Thank you. And then when the vice chair was talking about being in support of revisiting the PUD, are you talking about, is she referring to actually the architectural design of the district? Is that what you were calling the PUD?
So that's the actual underlying document that speaks to what uses are allowed, what uses are not allowed,
Sure.
how tall you can build, but also it includes the design guidelines and standards.
Great. And then, what was my other question? I'm looking at this map. Are there vacant properties inside this district that can be developed yet? In addition, while other properties are being redeveloped? I can't exactly tell if I'm looking at vacant land or parking lots from this map.
Yes,
I don't have a legend.
There are vacant properties, there are parking lots. There's also opportunities of partnering with strategic owners that have expressed potential reimagination of their spaces or moving into new spaces if the right proposal could be struck. So that does exist as well.
And then regarding maintenance and exterior upkeep of the existing properties, do you do the business owners, do your code, your city codes, I'm assuming are being enforced in this area as well in terms of, outward, public health and safety and outward appearance of the properties. I know when we had in Thornton, what we learned is that our codes didn't quite have enough teeth, and we had to rewrite them in a way that, to help, to encourage people into compliance, and also just to, make sure that properties in all of our neighborhoods were being maintained more consistently.
That is a very good question. Yes, we do have nuisance and other property maintenance code requirements that are equitably enforced. I will say that we have seen the property owners be able to maintain their properties within the acceptable ranges of our property maintenance codes, to which we have not had to leverage regulations and or the enforcement aspect of that to bring them into compliance.
Oh, that's great. I know we had a couple of problem property owners in my experience in Thornton, unfortunately. And then regarding this review board, it sounds like it might be that something that is going to be sunset. So I'll just listen more to that. Thank you. I appreciate being able to ask these questions. I needed a bit more of a level set being a newer member to the URA. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Douglas, you had your hand up. Did you decide against asking your question?
Just going forward with this presentation with Garrett Anderson, are we going to go through the questions to get the thoughts on the URA around those 3 questions at the end?
Do you have another slide, Mr. Anderson?
The only 2 questions on the URA portion of this meeting were, do we want to start to develop a CIP plan? And as a part of that, do we want to start considering opportunities to take a broader, more direct hand in acquiring and redeveloping property?
Okay, so just so that the URA, the other members are up to the blighted study, the PUD amendment, and select governance direction.
Yeah.
Because that's on this as well, correct?
No, those questions were just for the city council in the previous presentation.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. I didn't see that on this one. Okay, thank you.
Is there a chicken and egg problem here? Does the blight study occur before there is a discussion of buying properties and that sort of thing?
Certainly, there's a sequencing that's going to be sensitive there, yes.
Okay, and if blight study is undertaken, how long would that take?
Depends on how much research we do ahead of time. I think appropriate 6 months or more would be appropriate.
Yeah, I think the blight study in and of itself is actually a relatively straightforward analysis. Once again, it's very, that could take somewhere between 3 to 4 months if you have defined the boundaries that you want to start as your broadest limits, and then see whether or not that holds weight to then be affirmed with the city council giving direction to take that next step, which is where the most of the time really comes into, which is the, like I said, TIF arrangements or TIF agreements that you would have to negotiate with the other taxing entities that assess a mill within that district. The development of a URA plan is robust enough to identify the statutory requirements, but once again, the URA is an effectuation of the council's will. So the council's already made the determination on what's allowed, what's not allowed, how it's going to develop. The URA is going to further and repatriate the approvals of the council by the tools and the activities, the tools and the activities and the programs that it's allowed to do through its extension. So that URA plan is something that can be developed rather quickly. It's really going to be the negotiation period in the back and forth and thinking about how you balance that is where the time is spent.
So we know that we had a property in the northern end that they backed out of of their use because of dioxane found in the soil. Commissioner Henson's comments about the Thornton Shopping Center reminds me of that. Does, under URA responsibilities, is that a URA? If the property, if we find that the blight actually is because of contaminated soil, does the URA do the remediation, or who does the remediation?
I think that's very much dependent upon who the underlying property owner is. There's nothing to say that the URA could view that as an undertaking in helping with the remediation, but there has to be a purpose behind what is that going towards. Is it a redevelopment of that property and they need to be able to clean the soil so that a foundation can be laid? That is something that is an eligible activity to which you can expend those funds within that district. If it's the city, or not the city, but if it's the URA, yes, we can do that as well. We have done something similar to that in the Mile High Greyhound Park with V-Cups and environmental clearances and getting that site prepped and ready for a development partner, which we've been able to advance when we acquired that property. So yes, it can be. The importance behind what that use would be transitioning to or what would be done would be necessary for us to examine on whether or not that would be beneficial to the district and beneficial to the URA, and or be something that could be an impact that would then limit our abilities to actually put those funds in maybe a more appropriate undertaking that will be able to further the longevity of the district.
Now, that property has been sitting there since the brewery backed out.
Unfortunately, that property is actually outside of the district.
That's just north, just on the other side of the border.
So in the broader conversation of expanding the potential boundaries of this district, that would be a key property that we would want to
Yeah.
bring into the district.
Well, and the city owns that property.
Exactly.
So in theory, does the city council would have taken action on that one way or the other about cleaning it up? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So it feels premature to me, not having all of the answers yet for the blight study, et cetera, for the URA to be making these decisions. But I personally don't have any objections to any of these other than timing.
Yeah, I think, like I said, love putting a finer edge on it tonight. Once again, we're not saying definitively that, right, you need to come to some conclusion about CIP planning, but if there is a desire for us to continue that discussion, let us work up a framework to come back to you at a future study session to share with you how that can be laid out and how that then is a benefit to the existing structure that we have in the city and how this can slide in and how this can be a part of your budgetary discussions going forward as we're working through 27, 28 for the adoption of our URA budgets. So something just for us to be thinking about and for us to get some consensus that if I give my staff direction, hey, I heard from the URA board, this is something that they would love to explore. Let's work something up for them so that as we're going through the budget adoption process, we have something to present as far as a basic framework that can then be built on at the appropriate time with the discussions that then filter out of changes to zoning, changes to boundaries, as well as the overall vision.
Okay. And going back to the dioxane for a minute, that is groundwater, so it could be under other properties, not just this single one. Then the important thing is, to my mind, is this our first official URA meeting on a study session night, the first study session of the month?
No. We are still working on.
Oh, no.
It's a great question, though. We are still working on the resolution to amend the bylaws so that we do not have to call a special meeting. It's our goal and hope that as we go forward in the future months, leading in April and on, that will be in front of you all to adopt as a standard practice. But until then, we had to call the special meeting no different. Like we will have to call the special meeting in April so that you all can have a robust discussion around flock within the Derby district. But we are still working towards that resolution so that you all can take action and be able to set that path.
All right, thank you. And there is a role for private citizens to be on the URA. We have had difficulty keeping the volunteers who do apply for this and are appointed because the meeting jumps around. So hopefully we'll be able to get some sort of stable environment. And we appreciate Commissioner Henson and Commissioner Machuga for attending tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Happy to be here.
All righty. I think then that we are going to adjourn. No? What did I do? Okay, don't everybody yell at once. Use your microphones. Someone use a microphone and tell me.
We have an executive session that's going to require Commissioner Henson and Commissioner Machuga in there as well.
Oh, good point. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, then, I need a motion and a second for all of us to enter into, except for some of you, to enter in an executive session of the Commerce City Urban Renewal Authority pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, 4B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice related to the Boys and Girls Club. Is there any discussion? No. The motion on the floor is to enter into an executive session. Oh, wait, I don't have a motion. It would help. I need a motion and a second. Oh, I have a bunch of them. All right, Commissioner Sandoval is the first and Commissioner Teeter is the second. Thank you very much.
So
Now, is there any discussion? All righty. The motion on the floor is to enter into an executive session of the Commerce City Urban Renewal Authority pursuant to CRS 24-6-402, 4B, for the purpose of receiving legal advice related to the Boys and Girls Club. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. All righty.
Vice Chair, I just wanted to mention to our friends online, they will receive an email here shortly with a link to the Zoom meeting for the executive session.
All righty, watch your email. The time is now 8:18 p.m., and seeing no further business, I will adjourn the URA meeting and reconvene the council study session meeting. And we have next up, presentation from Community Wellbeing, and Jim Tolbert, Assistant City Manager, will introduce the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council.
Speaker.
I've been up here in so long, I forgot to turn it on. Maybe I need to forget and go back. Tonight, we're here to really we have a lot of new council members to update you on things that Community Wellbeing is doing. 5 years ago, the city had the good fortune to hire our first, I always say homeless person, homeless advocate. She wasn't homeless, homelessness, but we brought Sarah Mondesire on, and she started working with our homeless community, trying to provide services and guide them to better opportunities. It was very successful. They started in Parks and Rec Department, she did, and we moved her into community development and then up to the manager's office. But as we realized the depth of the problem, the issues that we're facing in the community, council was good enough to help us expand the program with the vision that the city manager's office, to really grow it into what community well-being is now. And I think it's been one of the success stories that we've had, and we felt like we needed to share that with y'all tonight. And I'm going to shut up and let Sarah do the presentation. And she's got a lot of slides, but she's going to run through them fairly quickly. But I think it'll show you the depth of the programs that they've really created on their own. They've been able to identify the need, look for resources, look for partnerships, and put things together. So I think it's a good opportunity for them to present to y'all. And Sarah.
Good evening. We're excited to be here, and I'll do my best to get through these 25 slides for you.
Mm-hmm.
So as Jim mentioned, we're Community Wellbeing. We're a division. We're about 3 years old. We are located on 72nd and Colorado Boulevard on the 5th floor. You may know it as South Platte Crossing, Adams Tower, or the C4 Community Campus. We have a lot of different names. So we're a team of navigators that provide direct services to residents, including resource navigation, advocacy, case management, and outreach. So those are the 4 main bucket of categories of all the services that our navigators do. We perform outreach, in-reach services, and host community events. We aim to develop initiatives and solutions to address poverty, homelessness, and neighborhood and race equity. I do also want to highlight on the 5th floor, we do share with nonprofits. The whole purpose of why we purchased the 5th floor as the city is to provide space for other community partners to kind of be a one-stop shop. So we have Black Parents United Foundation, Benefits in Action, Servicios, and I'm blanking right now, Family Promise of Greater Denver. So you'll see behind the team over here, they are here. I hope I do them proud of sharing all the great things that they do. So we have Jeremy Olvera, if you could all kind of just face to names. He's our Housing and Homelessness Supervisor. We are pending hiring a Stability Services Supervisor. We have Liz, our Family and Seniors Navigator. Kelsey Medina, our Homelessness Navigator. Paulina, our Health and Food Equity Navigator. We have Gil, he is not here, but he's our Housing Navigator. And then Fabiola, she is our backbone to our division. She's our Bilingual Admittance Specialist. All right, I want to start the presentation by highlighting Commerce City's participation in the National League of Cities. Back in July, we were selected as one of the 6 cities nationwide to join the National League of Cities 2025 Community Health and Wellbeing Accelerator. It's a 12-month program designed to build city capacity, leverage assets, and drive transformative policies to address root causes. So overall, we've identified in this cohort that we want healthier residents. So we identified 5 priority focus areas, which is access to housing, healthy foods, transportation, economic opportunities, and quality health care. So next steps is we're developing and reviewing the work plan, engaging existing staff and partners, and building action steps. All right, so the first position we'll talk about is our Family and Seniors Navigator. Liz serves individuals, families, seniors with resources to prevent displacement, alleviate financial burdens, and support their overall well-being through various services. She's very proactive with working with folks in the community eviction prevention services, application support. She hosts events in the community at both school districts, housing facilities, and both active adult centers. She hosts walk-in hours. You'll see down in the picture, she does a monthly Kearney bingo. They mentioned that they wanted more community enrichment, but they didn't have access to transportation. So every month she goes and does some fun activities and shares all the updates with programs related. On the top picture, that's over at Clearview Motel. We did a family outreach during the holidays, and it was a huge turnout. So we have our education employment navigator. They provide to connect residents to employment educational opportunities. Right now, this position is assisting with the GED program that we have with MSU, as well as our C3 Promise program, which is a free certificate program partnered with CCA. Employer recruitment. So the goal is with this position that once students graduate with the C3 certificate at no cost to them, that we're gonna streamline them into job placement with employment recruitment that align with certificates. Also helps with job search navigation, readiness, interview prep, wraparound supports, things like that. So come this Thursday, there's actually gonna be an information session over on our 5th floor with CCA hosting to share information about all the great certificates that are available to residents. This picture is one of the GED classes partnered with MSU, and our GED classes have been full. We have our health and food equity navigator, Paulina. She builds partnerships with organizations and agencies to increase food and healthcare access and services. She'll organize opportunities to promote nutrition, health, and wellness education in our community. Every month she hosts either an event, a service, or an educational workshop that aligns. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's for later. You'll see below examples of some of her initiatives. One of the big ones that recently has just started is the mobile food market over on 72nd Colorado at the RTD light rail station. In 2025, over 1,100 residents have been served and we're able to access fresh food. Also out of this program is Fill the Fridge. Anytime one of our clients get housed from streets to housed, she meets with them and creates individualized plans, fills their fridge with fresh groceries and pantry staples. And then we also partner with housing facilities down in the bottom. That was a project she partnered with Empowerment at Greyhound, along with Daniel Price from our Public Works team, and they wanted their own garden. And a lot of pop-up and mobile clinics around the community. Our homeless outreach navigator. So Kelsey provides programs and services to individuals and families experiencing homelessness in our community. This involves weekly street outreach, as well as our weekly walk-in hours on Wednesdays, which get really busy. She also participates in our community response team. So an interdisciplinary team with Public Works, park rangers, community resource officers, Public Works. We go out and proactively address like violations in the community. Some partnerships to highlight is right now we have an agreement, an IGA with Adams County, which allows us motel bridge housing. So anytime our clients get matched to a housing opportunity or voucher, it allows us to stabilize them temporarily, short-term in a motel while we wait for their apartment to be ready. We also partner with Ready to Work. We have an existing contract with our parks team. Ready to Work provides housing, job, and recovery program. So it's a team of a work crew that comes out and cleans our community debris dumping. They're focusing right now on kind of the Mile High Greyhound Park area in Derby. Last partnership to highlight is with Bayard Works. When shelter gets extremely cold and dangerous, we do activate shelter operations at EP through them. Last year, we activated 5 nights, which allowed over 100 people a warm, safe place to stay. I want to highlight our housing navigator. So Gil guides individuals and families through every step of their housing journey. So his main goal is to provide services and programs to ensure safe and stable housing placements. He assists with housing search, applications, and stability needs. These are 2 of our clients that were experiencing homelessness in our community. This is them leased up in their apartment. Out of Gil's program, he provides welcome home kits. So he does like a housing assessment, asks what their needs are to ensure success while they're housed, and also brings them like a kit to get them going, towels, cleaning supplies, pots, pans, things like that. So want to highlight these two ladies here. All right, for the good stuff, some events and programs that come out of community well-being. Our first one is The Well. It's a monthly event that's hosted, partnered with 180 Community Church. It's a free warm meal. There's a clinic that's on site, and also the navigators are there to provide services as well. Sometimes we have haircuts and dental care. So we are expanding The Well to a grab-and-go lunch on the fourth Friday of every month. The community enrichment, the original one is the first Friday of every month. The second, I apologize, I misspoke. We also have our digital literacy courses. One big ask that we kept hearing from the community is the need for digital literacy, especially from our seniors. So Liz has partnered with Servicios to allow this program. It's in our space every month. It's a new cohort, one-on-one lessons if we want after the class, and then all materials are provided. So you'll see Servicios instructor live in action here. I do want to highlight that it's offered in Spanish and in English. Our Spanish cohort always runs out of space. It's always booked up, so we go on to wait list. We also have Resource Roundup. This was created to make community resources information more accessible and easier to navigate. Each month is a different expert and topic. We do rotate from the North Rec Center in the South. Sessions cover issues and themes that directly impact Commerce City residents. The next one will be tomorrow at Bison Ridge. It's partnered and presented by Colorado Legal Services based on tenant rights. Our audience is all residents, and topics always vary each month. Out of Paulina's programs, we have our monthly health campaigns, community outreach events that provide services, resources, and information related to health and well-being. Different themes each month that typically align with the national health campaigns. You'll see some past events. We see Mayor Douglas, he attended our men's health screening event. We do annual blood drives, grief support, mental health awareness. The next event is cervical cancer prevention. It will be on the 31st at Eagle Point. Also, come next month, we are going to partner with our park rangers and E3 to do a nature walk for mental health awareness. We also host our Back to School annual event. This alleviates financial burdens for families by providing a free backpack pre-filled with essential school supplies. This year will be our third annual event. We started small and now we've expanded to PW partners with us and did all the grilling last year. Last year we distributed over 700 backpacks, and I imagine this year will probably increase that number as well with growing need. We also host the DMV to Go event. We kept seeing and hearing a need for folks to obtain their ID, but DMV appointments were booked out far in advance and transportation was a barrier. So when I first reached out for DMV to Go to come to our site, they were hesitant and wasn't sure if there was going to be enough people to attend. So they told us they would give us a shot, see how it goes. If we get enough people, then they'll consider coming back. So we hosted the first event. They were blown out the water. We exceeded numbers. They were overwhelmed. So now we host them quarterly. We are the busiest DMV to Go site in Adams County, and they provide 2 techs for us each event. The next one will be this Wednesday on the 5th floor. Last year, we were able to serve 140 residents through this event. This one's one of my personal favorites, is a pet clinic. Back in July of 2022, I hosted the first one in the Central Elementary parking lot. We were able to serve 22 pets, and since then, we are now serving up to 101 pets each event. Right now, we have a tentative date planned for April. This is a free vaccine clinic, pet exams, spay and neuter vouchers for folks that are experiencing homelessness or low income. It is an overwhelming outcome. Street Dog Coalition has shared that we are one of their busiest sites and they love coming back to our community. We also partner with the youth services and PRG every holiday with Project Present. Students are nominated from their teachers in Adams 14 and 27J with gifts. Families have the option to opt in for a meal kit, and that's where we come in. So Paulina coordinates ordering all the supplies. You could see through the pictures. Last year, we were able to provide 280 meal bags for families. This will be an ongoing partnership. This is a new event out of Liz's program, is our senior holiday lunch. It was partnered with the Senior Commission and the Active Adult Center to host our first annual lunch. It's to celebrate seniors in our community. They were nominated by peers, local organizations, and staff. Guests were invited to come enjoy a meal that was catered by Bison Grill and also receive personalized gifts from their wish list. We had 50 attendees and 36 nominations, and we're excited to do this again this year. All right, we also host our annual resource fair. This one's coming up on May 1st. I also want to highlight, this is our third year. I remember the first year, it was really hard to get vendors to come. And now this go around, it's really beautiful to see. Vendors are reaching out to us to attend, and I think that goes to show the impact and reputation we've built in the community. We probably anticipate having over 50 vendors this year. We also have our safe parking program. It's overnight parking for folks living in their cars. We provide safe, sanctioned parking with case management services. Last spring, Community Wellbeing took on the responsibility of completing intakes and applications for Adams County safe lots. We have 2 in Adams County. We were the first to uplift this lot in Adams County in general, so that's really exciting. Last year, 12 parkers were housed from 23. I do also want to highlight that we recently were awarded a grant from the state to expand this program. Right, lastly, we have our street medicine program. This is partnered with YHC, our Yahweh Health Clinic partners. They're volunteer nurses and doctors that come out and provide street medicine during outreach. They go directly with us to encampments. They also host a clinic on our 5th floor during walk-ins, and they also attend the well. So last year we had 85 medical contacts during outreach in 2025, and they do a lot of really cool things. They've taken staples out of people's heads. They've cleaned wounds. They're really amazing to have with us, and they love coming to our community. Right, gonna end with some data and outcomes from last year. Kind of broke it down by community engagement. So I know these numbers are lower because we didn't start using our new apricot system till spring of last year, so these numbers are higher, but we did document over 3,000 contacts, like touch points through walk-ins, phone calls, people looking for resources in need. Case management contacts over 2,000, and we provided over 1,200 referrals to other organizations. We hosted 58 community events with over almost 2,000 attendees, and at the events, 1,300 services were provided. See some essentials that were given. Really want to highlight our housing outcomes. We had 36 eviction prevention cases, 28 transitional housing placements, and 24 permanent housing placements. We also have some post-housing services, which I mentioned was Fill the Fridge, the Welcome Home Kits, and follow-ups. So it's important for us not only to house folks, but keep them housed healthy and successfully. So our housing navigator does 3 months follow-ups where we check in, do home visits, see if there's any needs, see the condition of their home, just ensure that they're transitioning well and continue to do so. Couple challenges that we currently have right now is our land development code does not allow this issue. Staff internally is working on getting this in. So an example is 72 applications were received last, but only 34 were approved. So safe parking right now has some strict requirements. We're hoping as we expand, we'll be able to kind of lower the barrier a little bit. The registration insurance requirements has been a barrier. Right now is our RVs. During our annual point in time count, which is once a year in January, nationwide count to do literally a count of folks experiencing unsheltered homelessness. We did observe 35 RVs. Unfortunately, right now there are no alternatives, and these are people's homes. If they're not in the RVs, they're going to be displaced to the streets. So trying to find that balance. And of course, we have our housing availability, which is slim, shelter placement, transitional, and affordable units. And then we are available for questions.
Sarah, this is awesome. And team, well-being team, amazing. Just want to thank you so much. This was really a dream of a city council a few years ago because of ARPA funds that were coming in. And the question was, how do we prevent people from going into homelessness, for one thing? And then it expanded from that. So it's a perfect example, I think, of a city council doing the what and why, and staff doing the how. And you guys, I can't even imagine all that you have accomplished, and that we really weren't even as big as we thought we were thinking with the millions of dollars that were coming in. We did not conceive of the things that you have come up with to help so many needy people in our community, and it's just really beautiful. Appreciate it so much. It's really great. Thank you. Questions, folks? Mayor Douglas has had his hand up for a long time, but you were on such a roll. I sent him a text and said, no, we're going to let Sarah finish. So,
Sorry about that.
right, okay, Mayor Douglas.
Thank you, Sarah. No, I was going to wait till she was done. No, this is great. This is, this is like the Lord's work here. You guys are doing amazing, especially with our community, making so many contacts. And are you guys working with not only with National League of Cities, but are you working with the Housing Supply Accelerator as well?
Yes, that is part of the NLC.
Okay, thank you. Because they have is someone on the 5-week program, because it started in February, it ends on March 10th. Was there anybody was able to participate in that 5-week?
Oh, no,
class?
ours wasn't, I guess, no, not on that,
Okay.
not that short turnaround, but housing initiatives are part of the priority areas for the NLC cohort.
All right. Yeah, I will be in DC next week along with other council members, and I will be talking with the different accelerators and to make sure things are get maintained. But no, this is amazing work. I've come down and visit community well-being, especially off Monaco. And seeing how many people come in and how many services are provided. You had healthcare on demand down there with the dentist and everyone working together. I didn't see anybody that was misbehaving. They were very appreciative. Lunch was served, and people look forward to that. And also have shared the DMV to go. That's been very successful, and thank you very much for continuing for all you guys do. This is a lot. I mean, it seems to me you guys are have more touches than the county does in this area. So kind of like took over. This is something that usually you see the services from the county, not from a city. So I want to thank everybody for what they have contributed. From the housing well-being manager, housing stability services, family and senior navigators. I mean, the list goes on. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you so much for all of the work that you do, for the really great presentation. I've had an opportunity to sit through a couple of other presentations, and I have to say, they're tough crowds, and people are very curious and very insistent on knowing when you're going to solve homelessness. And my observation of your programs is you do much more than solve the problem of someone not living in a home. You help people be seen. You have these incredible wraparound services. Mr. Oliveira came and spoke at a group and talked about approaching the people in our community without homes and how resistant they were at first. And he became more and more persistent, more and more kind, more and more patient. And before you know it, they're welcoming him, and they're having conversations with him, and they're receiving the services that you're offering, even if it's just a little bit. I think this type of approach in the work that you do, the education, the food, the clothing, the just connecting, having relationships, knowing that Mr. Oliveira is going to come by, knowing that Paulina is going to, bring some food. This is what makes a quality community for a lifetime, regardless of what your home looks like. And I commend you for all of the incredible work that you do, for continually thinking outside of the box, increasing your services to, these are our citizens, these are residents that live in our community. So thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful for the work that each and every one of you does.
Councilmember Guardiola.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. Yeah, again, just echoing, I mean, you guys are really doing the work, right? And we appreciate it. I know I do. I sat in a presentation, a shorter one, and I left that meeting and I was just like, wow, like they're doing the work. And I think one of the questions that I would ask you all, looking at this presentation on the challenges, to give us solutions, opportunities and options to really help you solve those three things, right? Within our means. And I would ask you guys that, to go back to your team, because at the end of the day, I always say the staff are the experts. I'm not an expert at this. You guys do it every day. And for me, I believe in you guys, right? I will take those in consideration because you guys are out there every day talking to the residents, talking to the people, doing the work. And I take that serious when you come to a solution or give us some solutions and saying, this is what's gonna help the safe parking. This is gonna help the RVs, housing, within our means. So I hopefully you guys could go back and as a team think of like, hey, what are some solutions that are low-hanging fruit, and what are bigger visions that, at a 30 level feet, level. So again, thank you. You guys do an amazing job out there. The other question is, how many nonprofits within our city do you guys partner with that are Commerce City nonprofits?
Ooh, I don't want to give a number because it's not going to be right.
But you guys do, okay,
Absolutely, yes. A lot.
okay.
I could definitely get back to you on an exact number, but I don't want to misspeak and
No, that's-
undermine our partnerships.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. And the reason I asked that is just, I just met with two nonprofits and they were asking how they could give back to our city. And your department came up just because I was fresh from the Cultural Council presentation y'all gave. And so I'll be sending an email to City Manager Rogers to connect you guys, and I didn't know how that connection. The other thing is kudos on the See It, Fix It. I finally tried it, City Manager Rogers, and it was dope. The response, the comments, and what you guys did. So Kelsey Medina, I'm glad they put a face to it, and because I was like, who's this Kelsey Medina? And it's like, I'm looking at the app, but I think that shows the passion and seriousness of what you guys do. And if it's doing it for me as residents and as council member, I can only imagine to promote that. And I've been promoting that app. It's very hard to get the app. I'll let you guys know. It is super hard. Staff had to get it online. But just know that you guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. Thank you so much for this presentation and highlighting all of the services that you all are doing. And I'm in awe. Thank you for the impact you all are making in our city. I can't imagine what we would do without the work you all are doing. The data is super helpful. We're able to really see what the impact is that we are having, that you all are having on our residents. So definitely looking forward to and trying to figure out how we navigate some of these challenges. And so I'm also happy to meet with you all to maybe talk through some of that stuff as well. And I know city staff is extremely helpful also navigating that. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Sandoval.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. CW team, thank you so much for this presentation and all of the hard work that you do. You will honestly have the most rewarding jobs in this entire city. So kudos to you for the work that you do day in and day out. Whether you feel seen or not, you are seen for the work that you do and the work that you, the services that you offer our community. I think the data is extremely important. It's helpful to see the total numbers. I'm curious as far as like if there's higher months as far as need goes, if you've identified a trend and what that looks like. And that's just out of curiosity for myself. And the other thing that I would like to just offer my support, that if you have any suggestions, because oftentimes individuals will ask for that and it goes unheard or dismissed, or it turns back around as, oh, there's other things, you know, that are more important. But I would truly like to offer my support in any way that I can. So thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Councilmember Kim?
Thank you. Just a few questions here regarding the pet clinic. I know the pet clinic pretty much has like, you get a lot that come through there. So I'm curious as far as what is the cutoff? Is there a cutoff? And then what do you do when you have overages of people versus, yeah?
Yes, good question. So since our last clinic, we did have to turn away a lot of folks. We were running out of the vaccines and the supplies. So a lot of unhappy folks. So this go around, Street Dog Coalition and I, we are talking about doing a pre-registration and cutting off at 50. We haven't finalized details yet, but this is how we want to mitigate any frustrations, a big congestion of pets and dogs all in one area. So we're looking at doing a pre-registration and then having them come back more regularly.
And probably set up like an appointment type of feel.
Probably
that makes
stagger
sense.
every 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Have a separate cat and dog area.
I will be having a conversation with the city manager about the safe lots, LDC not supporting it. I'd be curious to hear more, but I would love to know more as far as like where do you guys foresee the locations being at? Not right now at this session, but later on down the line. Regarding C-Click Fix, it was easy for me to set up, maybe because I'm somewhat tech savvy, but anyways, I'm just curious. So within C-Click Fix, there used to be a group in there where it was it was between community well-being, police department, you had other individuals. I forgot what the name of the group was. My dementia's kicking in here, but there was a group in there where I was able to click on. What is it?
CRT, the community response team.
Yeah, what happened to that?
They eliminated that group and just now did to encampments response.
What was the rationale behind that, if I may ask? Come on, Mr. Tolbert.
The CRT still exists. It's a team that works on all code enforcement issues, but what we found is when we were trying to do the dashboard that we created, some people were putting in encampments under CRT and some were putting them in under encampment. Same thing with weed violations. Some were going in as CRT and not weed violations. So to track the actual violations, since CRT is not a violation, we just took it out as an option. So now the menu are actual things that we need to look at. So encampments are encampments. And that way, when we're doing the dashboard, we're trying to keep up with the numbers. We know exactly how many we're getting.
Okay, I think my only suggestion is probably for more so IT is regarding with the CRT, with whatever it's called now, I forgot the name you just said, but is to put a description in there as far as what it's for. So obviously when residents do go in and they wanna report something, right? You have someone that might be homeless or something the case is, where do they click on, right? I mean, there's some of the options in there, I just look at them, it's like, I don't even know where it goes. So I just kind of just throw something at the dartboard to figure out where it's gonna stick, and eventually it gets passed around to the right people. As far as
take a look at it and see.
Yeah, that's my only other thing. And then as far as donations, what donations is it that you guys are asking for, that you guys would be requesting from the community to assist with, to help with? It could come from all different types. I'm just curious to hear from from all the departments, mainly from you.
We do have an Amazon wish list on our website. and that's the most up-to-date need, and we always change priority based on what we're seeing. So right now, like the Welcome Home Kits, we are partnering with the DEI Commission, and they're doing the Feminine Hygiene Drive. So we do have a bin in our hall right now as well that we'll distribute to folks and community partners.
Okay. And then the other thing regarding the feminine hygiene drive, I would recommend, if you don't know, I think you already know them, Angie Bogardis from Sparkling Kindness. She does a lot of the feminine hygiene products. I know she's done a lot with Adams 14 in the past, but I can get your contact information if you need it, if you don't have it. Okay, that's all I got then. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dukes?
Thank you. Thank you all for the work you do. Just a quick question around partnership with Feline Fix. When you do the pet clinic, do you partner with them?
No, we haven't, but they've been on our radar.
Yeah, okay. I just put it out there because they are a nonprofit here in our city, and that would be helpful to offset some of the many, of course, I just do felines, yeah. So, but it'd be a great partnership. And then if you go to slide 4, I want to, on your presentation, I don't know if you were a part of or heard about what we just passed our last council meeting. We actually passed a motion to have a quarterly update that aligns to this National League of Cities work that you're doing. So we're going to see more of you, from my understanding. And this is for this intention. As you're talking about the policy challenges and the things was LDC, we're creating a space where we can have this dialogue to help, like, hey, to Councilmember Garriola's point, what are some of these challenges? And as a council, how do we help you on a policy level to remove some of these barriers? And then give you space to actually have real discussions around all the work you're doing. So it's not just a once in a year presentation. I heard about the National League of Cities Award, and then I was able to connect the dots because I was able to talk with Jeremy, and we were able to sit down and see firsthand the impact of the work that you all are doing to help transition folks who are experiencing homeless, help with the housing, think about the seniors. And it was that epiphany to be like, okay, how do we begin to help be more proactive about it so that we can really create a quality community for a lifetime in all areas. So the areas you listed, these 5 focus areas, we have talked about it differently, but knowing the work you're doing and in understanding the challenges that you face, I think this is going to accelerate your work, but also help us be better partners in this work. And so I'm excited that this was almost unanimously approved. It wasn't, but it was close to unanimous. And we are going to continue to work with you and be a part of this discussion for that reason. The last is just a general thank you. As we think about quality housing, healthy foods, I am excited, genuinely excited to hear more about the work, hear about the challenges, hear about what we need to do as policymakers to be better so that we can help radically transform our community. And I hope that's the key piece, radically transform it, not just in one sector, but like, how do we develop a holistic approach, a well-being approach for all of our residents? And I'm excited to listen to your expertise because, you know, we don't know, we're not there every day. So I hope this is going to be a great opportunity for us to say, okay, how do we do this together? And but thank you for the work. Thank you for opportunities, for everything you're doing. And thanks for coming here tonight and presenting. So thank you.
Thank you again. Can I just ask one final question, which is, how do you get the word out?
About our programs and services. I think we're always out in the community, word of mouth. I think we've built a great reputation, the relationships that navigators build with families and individuals that referral-based, really. We're always out in the community, rec centers, housing facilities. So I think community outreach.
That's great. Thank you again, Sarah, and thanks to the Wellbeing Team crew as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, we're moving on now to employee policy updates, and Megan Rahi, the Senior HR Business Partner, will give the presentation. Good to see you again, Megan.
I remembered to turn the mic on. Oh, Jim walked away. It's not a stab. Well, I don't know how I'm going to follow that up, but real quick, Megan Ray, I am the senior HR business partner. I'm also the supervisor over our employee relations team, so we focus on policy application. We work directly with the individual departments across the city with any type of employee conflict, peer-to-peer conflict, and so forth. My team also manages learning and development, class and compensation. We're kind of a jack of all trades, but one of our big focuses lately has been on employee policy updates. So I'm going to go through a couple slides. There's not too much, but let me know if you have any questions. In the documentation we sent over, there was a PDF format of all of the policy drafts. So I just wanted to make reference that that's the document that we'll be talking about today. So the big question is, why are we doing this? Why did we put in this work? And it's because many of our policies come from 2012 to 2015, and they live in a handbook style document, meaning that they haven't been updated to be compliant with local federal laws, along with just standard business practices and adapting to our changing environment. So some of the things that we really wanted to focus on through this rewrite is some of the laws like Healthy Families, Healthy Workplace, that is focused on making sure people have their sick leave bank if they don't qualify for general leave. We have family, which is the paid medical leave through Colorado. Well, we opted out. How does that impact our leave, our terms and things like that? You have Colorado Equal Pay, ADA, which is your accommodations, and then also as we're ever changing AI use and how that impacts how we operate every day. Organizationally, we've changed as far as structure. You heard from community well-being, they started PRG, then moved. How does that, impact our policies and how we adapt over time? Leadership changes, HR system changes just as we grow as an organization. And really the main focus of our policy review was to focus on creating clarity and consistency along with compliance. When policies get outdated, it tends to go a little bit rogue and people have a lot of questions. So this is to fill in some of those blanks that may have been created through those gaps. So our ultimate goal is to have plain professional language that's easy for everyone, regardless if they're an HR professional, if they're a manager, or this is their first job as a lifeguard at the city. We want them to be able to pick up a policy and understand the language that's in it and how it applies to them individually. But also, again, that compliance with making sure that we're keeping up with laws, collective bargaining changes on a regular basis, and also city charter, just making sure we have that compliance across the board. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that these are practical and simplified. So when people are going through them, looking for them where they're at, they know exactly what they're looking for. Right now, it's a handbook that's been passed around. It's not easy to get to. People are like, where is it saved? So we want to create that consistency of how to access it as well. And then creating those clear boundaries that allows departments to build and supplement based off of these baseline policies. The best example that I can give is really dress code. What applies to PW or Public Works, when you think about safety shoes, safety vests, may not apply to our tax accountants that are out in the field. So we want to create a policy that is a baseline, but then allowing for departments to pull in some of those safety, to pull in some of those brand recognition if they're out in the community, things like that, without stifling their ability to make those decisions at the department level. So we've been through quite an extensive process. This started in November of 2024. So while that looks like a linear path when you look at this slide, it really bounced around. So you have the subject matters, who are the people who live and breathe in the work. So that is our friends in finance when we talk about travel, things like that. How does that impact? What does that look like? Obviously, human resources is going to play a big hand in that, but we rely heavily on the subject matter experts. So working with city attorney and so forth. And then we'll pass those on to city attorney's office to make sure that we are interpreting that law correctly, that we're including all the codes that we need to, and also making sure that we are considering all these different things that we don't live and breathe in every day. Then, of course, the city manager's office took a review, make sure that everything makes sense, it's easy to be applied, and then now we're at the point where we're presenting to city council for adoption. So looking at the roadmap, we of course did an audit. We looked at all of our policies to say, where are the gaps? What are we missing? Or what are the things that no longer apply? So we could pull those out. And then we moved into the full rewrite. Most of our policies didn't actually go through a true rewrite. They are staying contextually the same, but it was changing that language, taking it to the easy reader language level, and making sure that it's understandable, and then adding in again those gaps, and then removing things like he or she and moving into, you know, things like that, modernized language. Then we moved into the review. So once the policy has been reviewed, we had multiple eyes look at it. Make sure, you know, what's up here makes sense down there for people who don't live in that work. And we are now currently at the stage of taking to council for, again, that adoption. Once that's done, we'll have a full launch, make sure employees know where is it at, where does it live, how to access it, understanding it. And then the ongoing cycle, we don't want our policies to go from 2012 to 15 to 2026 again. So we'll have a regular review process to take a look at those, not only just when the laws are changing, but a regular occurrence of every policy. Of course, we'll prioritize as things shift in the environment. So we did start with 66 policies. We are ending with 51. So 5 policies are being removed. That list of removed policies is in the council communication if you wanted to see those. But most of them are being removed because either they were very outdated and no longer applicable, or they're covered by the city attorney's conflict or code of ethics policy. Or could be combined. So we had 10 policies that were combined. So we had multiple policies that had very similar language that over time kind of became their own beast, and we've now put them together just to make sense. So it all lives together. So if you're looking for one thing, you know where to look without having to look for 50 different things. So really, like I said, most of our policies stayed contextually the same, just modernized most of the language. I did want to call out 2 policies that we are recommending some change to, again, moving to more of that modernized approach. So with general leave, right now it's a really complicated process. You get your 48 hours of sick leave to be compliant with Healthy Families and Workplace Act, but then you get a prorated bank that's applied for a certain period of time. A lot of employees, especially new hires, get really confused on what is my bank? How much time do I have? When do I get it? So in order to clarify that, we are aiming to simplify that process by giving them their 48-hour, prorating their bank up front. So allowing them to access that bank sooner, but also, again, not pulling that down the road where they're like, I don't know, am I getting 100 hours? Am I getting 10 hours? I just don't know. So it helps kind of with that confusion. And then the reinstatement policy, I have never worked at an organization that only gives people 90 days to come back. How do you know the grass is greener in 90 days, right? And so we did look at this, and we're proposing a 12-month return period, 18 months with city manager approval. Again, that's allowing people time to realize, like, hey, I want to go back to Commerce City. I appreciate the work that Commerce City is doing, but also incentivizes them to return to the city and continue great work with us by allowing them to come back at their current tenure or the tenure that they left the city at, and also allows them to know that we appreciated them. So it's that recruitment incentive on top of that as well. So next steps, the policies obviously need to be approved, and so we will look for that on a consent agenda in the future. Once approved, HR will launch a citywide training campaign. We want to make sure everyone knows what they're expected to, how they're expected to operate, what boundaries that they have, where they can find that information. Our goal is transparency of why we made the changes, when these changes will be effective, and then where they can access those whenever they want. And then again, all the policies will live on the city's intranet now, allowing people to access the source of truth, meaning that is the document that they'll be held by without having to go through a bunch of hoops to look for the documentation. That is what I have.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That was a heavy lift, nevertheless.
A lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilmember Guardiola.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Temp. Again, thank you for doing this. I know sometimes in the public sector, policies kind of just fall through, and I know as City Council, we're looking at charter stuff because it just it's a lot of work, so I appreciate it. The other thing I would say is, I know it affects employees, but the citywide training, could you guys also do something to put out for the public? Because I think this is a good opportunity to get people to come back or apply for jobs here. Because if they know, well, this is the benefits I'm getting, this, I think that just would be a great opportunity to get, especially more city folks, because in recent years, a lot of city folks have left. And that's one thing that we want to work on, is bringing them back. So that's just a suggestion. I'm all for this. I think this is great. We have to keep updating. Is there a cycle that you guys will go through every 3 years, 4 years? That's another thing I would always just keep as your department and be like, oh, 3 years, let's see what's changed, because life does change. So thank you for doing this. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we agree on having a regular cadence to look at them, and then also pulling forward those ones that are actively being looked at through policy and law revisions over time.
Councilmember Jukes?
Thank you. Thanks for the work, the hard work to go through this whole process. I just have a quick question about the reinstatement policy. I've worked in city government before, and I haven't seen the reinstatement policy in different places. I'm curious the history of it here, and yeah, I'm just curious about it, more about it.
Yeah, so the current policy as it stands today is 90 days. If you return within that 90 days, you come back at your current tenure, which would allow you to earn your general leave bank at the tenure you left, longevity, which is generally tied to the CBA, and then also we've rolled that out to all full-time staff. So those are some of those impacts that they'll have. We're extending that to 12 months, which is what I have seen historically in my HR experience. This is my first public sector, but in private sector, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in telecommunications, and generally it is that 12-month. And so we're trying to modernize that to attract those individuals back.
So if they, I guess that I'm curious around the history. So if they leave, if someone leaves the city and they go to a like job in another city, when they'll come back in the same role, or don't you close that position and rehire? Like, what? Yeah,
So
I'm curious.
they'll have the competitive process just like anybody else, but it's when they actually accept the offer, rather than being a new employee again, they will then be reinstated at that tenure. But they still have to apply, they still have to interview and go through that competitive process to be compliant with the Colorado equal pay. There's no preferential anything in the recruitment process. It's just more of that incentive to have them re-engage with us as an employer. And then in their offer letter, that's where we would clarify that you're being reinstated.
No, okay, that's clear. Thank you. That makes sense.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's my fault. It wasn't clear the question. But what I'm hearing you say is, like, if someone leaves and say you have, 6-7 years of benefits here, and you have, you built up your vacation bank and all that stuff, and you leave and you decide to come back, you won't have to start all the way back from zero. You can come back where you're currently at. Okay, thank you.
All right, then I have a question on that too, actually. In my work experience, I had not seen that as well. What does it mean in terms of benefits then? That does confuse me, because generally when someone leaves, they cash out their benefits, if you will. So what do you do when you come back a year later or a year and a half later?
So it's more about the years of service. So when they do receive their annual bank, they'll earn it at that higher accrual rate, rather than they're not getting that bank reloaded back to them from day one. So it's more, as employees are getting their bank at the first pay period of the benefit year, that's when they'll feel that impact of that.
Okay, you guys are the experts. I'll leave it to you. And we have council policies that could use some refining also, because we have like 40 pages of council policies that we have added on to over the years, and most of them get ignored. All right, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Councilmember Sandoval?
Megan, thank you so much for all the hard work and the not so glamorous work that goes on into what you put into this. I know it's a lot, so appreciate it. Seems like the city's moving in a great direction with all the amendments and changes and up to date from A to Z, realistically. So you're a part of that process. So appreciate the work that you do, and just wanted to appreciate you for the presentation. It's informative.
I have one other question then. AI use. You have added something on that, and I've been reading a great deal about that recently and how policies do need to be in place so that workers know what the expectations are, how to use it, how they could be replaced, all of that kind of stuff. What is your council policy say about AI use?
So our policies are specific to employee personnel. The actual AI policy will live with IT and be better housed with them. So I don't know the best question to that, but it's more along the lines of our policies are making sure that there's like no misuse through performance and things like that. I don't want to speak to the IT specific policy. We can answer that.
Right, I don't mean it in terms of IT, I mean it in actual terms of workers and employees.
It's a great question. So the city is establishing an AI policy that will be applicable to council as well as to city staff. It's technically not an employee policy, which is why it's not part of this presentation. But that is exactly, it's a great question that's on the forefront of our mind in getting that finalized and established for everyone.
All right, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Megan. I apologize for saying your last name incorrectly.
okay.
Megan Ray, I appreciate it very much. Thank you both.
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem, we do have Mayor Douglas's hand up.
Thank you very much, Mayor Douglas.
Thank you, Megan. I heard everyone speak, and I just had a question. What about health insurance? So if someone leaves, is there a lap in coverage? How does that get handled?
Yeah, so when an employee leaves, their benefits will carry until the last day of the month that they leave. So for example, if they resign April 3rd, their benefits will run through, I think, April 30th or 31st, depending on how many days are in the month. When they return, they have the same benefits. Our benefits don't change by tenure. So they'll wait until the first day of the following month that they start, and then they'll have the same benefits as anyone else. That's one of the items that doesn't change by tenure. Everyone has the same access.
Okay, because wouldn't there be a lapse in coverage though if you're gone over a month? Usually COBRA sets in, as far as insurance. But if you're gone from a job for insurance, and then you come back, you have to be reinstated at a certain period. Then there's a penalty.
So through open enrollment as a new employee, they have 31 days. It's a qualifying event to sign up for benefits. So the only lapse should generally be within that first 30 days, 31 days, depending on when they start within the month. However, there shouldn't be any type of lapse. Hopefully we're at another employer and had benefits. If not, like you said, they would have elected in COBRA. But otherwise, they'll just follow our same benefit schedule. There won't be any change to that through the reinstatement policy.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
And City Attorney Zarzaki?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just to highlight for council, you may be wondering why exactly is this coming before you, right? Because it is operational somewhat, it is overseeing employees. The reason for that is there's a provision in 7.40 of the charter that is it talks about, 7.4 talks about the city manager's functions. O says to recommend for approval by council appropriate personnel rules and regulations governing officers and employees of the city. I flag that because you will see before you a resolution to adopt all the policies that HR has been working so diligently for the last year to finalize. My interpretation of O is that that certainly requires city council approval. I know we have an upcoming conversation or an upcoming study session to talk about potential charter changes. This is one that I think is ripe for your consideration. The city of Thornton has similar language, but it is importantly different. It says that the city manager has the authority to establish, to the extent the authority is delegated by city council, personnel rules and regulations, which is to say particularly if we're going to be amending these policies every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, it may be more efficient to authorize that authority for the city manager to approve. Of course, it requires a charter change, but then you're not all spending, valuable time in council meetings looking over employee policies that you may not otherwise want to spend an entire night on. So just flagging that. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. That did cross my mind. Appreciate it. All right, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
We're moving now to reports. City Manager Rogers.
Thank you, ma'am. Just want to share again that free senior lunches in partnership with the Volunteers of America and funded from our ACT program will be expanding to twice a week, starting Monday, March 16th. That will be held Mondays and Wednesdays of every week. With Public Works, just an update on our Highway 2 median project. You'll start to notice that construction activities between that section of 96 and 104 are advancing, and we expect construction to be completed by the end of May. We've talked about the Derby Diamond a little bit today, but I think people in the community are going to actually see some construction activity begin on Monday, March 16th. So there's going to be some shovels in the ground, some dirt being thrown. So positive news there. Under PRG, Bison Grove Clubhouse expansion design documents are advancing on schedule, and a grading and building permit was submitted at the end of February with our expected comments this week. That's important because that's a milestone with us actually getting out of design, now actually moving forward with getting the necessary approvals from ourselves, which is a part of the process, so that we can then be able to have that next level of then being able to put a shovel in the ground and actually really start to see how that expansion will start to really take shape. We are advancing with connecting the clubhouse to South Adams County Water and Sand. That will provide a sustainable water source into the future for the clubhouse and restaurant. I think I've shared in the past. The clubhouse currently sits on a well. That well was at the time of construction back in the late 90s. So the longevity of that well has come full cycle. So we want to make sure that we're providing the necessary resources for the restaurant, for the clubhouse. Obviously, as with the Northern Range substation, we're continuing with the design development drawings as they advance with the vendor. I think what's going to be an important piece that will, be a nice dovetail into our discussions with the community as to the next step is that our vendor is working on a landscape plan and still being fleshed out. The city staff has not seen it yet, but that is a pivotal piece for just thinking about the interplay with the surrounding community and obviously the mitigation of any real or perceived nuisance that may come. But that'll be a piece that we'll be able to share with the community when we get to that stage of our design developments. But that is what I have to share with you today. Any questions?
City Attorney Zarzaki?
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I do have a question.
I'm sorry, he was ahead of you on my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's because I had clicked in the queue. That was a while back.
All right, fine.
All good.
Now, Councilmember Duke, sorry.
City Manager Rogers, with the well connection to South Adams Water, will that actually help the golf course as well? Is that for the whole golf course?
No, so we actually have an irrigation well currently for the golf course itself, and then there's a well for the clubhouse. So this will just be for a connection to the clubhouse and to the restaurant. The golf course is more unique and interesting in its irrigation because of just some of the alluvial systems and how to navigate those various connections because of just the bifurcation of the roadway. So not to say that we couldn't look at that into the future, but I think right now, given where we stand with what's in front of us as the next major improvement, that's the one that we're focusing on.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zarzaki. I'm sorry, City Attorney Zarzaki.
No problem. I just had two things. So I just wanted to emphasize something that Megan was presenting, which 51 policies were revised over the last year. That is a lot of policy. That is a lot of review. That is a number of different iterations of red lines. And I cannot in good faith take credit for that. We have staff attorney, Katie Bostwick, who spent a considerable amount of her time over the last several months focused solely on that effort and getting this before council in an expeditious way. Also, a shout out to Deputy City Attorney Durfee, who was here this evening to answer any questions that came up with that. She worked with Katie on getting those approved or moved forward. The other thing I wanted to let council know is I will not be at the DC trip with you, in large part because I will be attending the EMLA trip in DC in early April. So in consideration of my travel budget, I made the decision that it was appropriate for me to be attending the mid-year EMLA convention. So do not be surprised when I'm not there. I wish you all luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll turn now to, any questions for the city attorney? All right, we'll turn to council reports. Council members, anyone wish to make a report? All right, Councilmember Guardiola.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I just got a couple updates from the Cultural Council. We had the Sand Creek Public Art presentation with an organization that is working the wetland park. They're working with city staff to kind of see what they need to do. It's an organization that has an idea of the art. Super cool. If you've ever been to the wetland park, kind of loop, but that's going to be coming to city staff and then us. The other big item was the dissolution of the Cultural Council. They voted and it passed. So that will be coming. I think next steps is to staff and to see how it's going to be just a regular board, not a 501c nonprofit, which again, I abstained. Councilwoman Young abstained, but I just noticed the room and where it went, and they were excited. It was right for them, so I'm excited to see how that plays out on a larger scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Trujillo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I attended the Read Across America event with Councilmember Guardiola and our city clerk. Had a great time there reading to the students. They were a little restless, but it was a really, really great event and would encourage other council members and city staff to maybe attend next year. Seemed like they really enjoyed hearing from us. So other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kim.
Thank you. So I got a few things. I'll start off with is obviously DRCOG. I'm going to steal Charles, Councilmember Duke's thunder here. So the Power Head Collar Initiative is currently transitioning from a successful first phase to a more specialized second round focused on regional coordination and innovative policy implementation. To date, round one has obligated approximately $26.25 million across 27 jurisdictions, covering 85% of the region's population and funding over 20 new staff positions to address emissions in existing and new buildings, with approximately $8.8 million remaining. The proposed second round introduces a $2 million regional set aside to fund shared services such as policy facilitation, utility engagement, and a standardized home energy scoring system. Won't go into the other details of that. The second part is I attended the Veterans Commission. We had a continued discussion regarding the acquisition of commission swag, specifically focused on the procurement of additional promotional materials and apparel. Furthermore, members did receive an update on the current planning and status of the upcoming fundraising event to be held at the VFW. Leadership Commerce City had the opportunity, so the Leadership Commerce City's motto for this past Friday was regarding school districts, both 27J and Adams 14. I unfortunately could not attend the Adams 14 due to a prior commitment. But I'll just say this regarding the mission. So the mission of 27J schools, and again, I think this really speaks volumes, is that in partnership with our families and community, 27J schools empowers every student today to take control of their future tomorrow. That belief is that supports the mission and serve as a foundation for the general learning outcomes are all students can learn, success breeds success, and schools with community support manage the conditions for success. And finally, did attend the Memorial Day planning meeting, the first one. It was centered on strategic planning for the event's landmark 60th anniversary with a primary focus on honoring fallen service members while ensuring a safe and celebratory environment. Key operational updates included the launch of the Grand Marshal nomination process on the city website during the week of March 9th, with a final selection of the top 3 candidates slated for early April. That is what we discussed, and I'm sure there was some other stuff regarding that I don't have. So anyways, that's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dukes?
Thank you. A couple things just to report on. One, I'll be doing a visit to the Village Crest apartments to talk with some of the tenants there about their concerns of Village Crest apartments this Thursday. The other one is that I wanted to give an update on the Power Ahead. I was nominated to be on the oversight committee, and Power Ahead has the opportunity to provide heat pumps across our region to help with the decarbonization and challenges across families that are disproportionately impacted. One of the key things that Councilmember Kim mentioned is that there is going to be another award coming out. But for us, for Commerce City, what we're going to have to discuss is how we help our residents understand the heat pumps and then begin to understand what that looks like if they want to engage or be a part of that. One thing that was brought up in the oversight orientation was the fact that although we know that the heat pumps are going to provide a financial benefit to some, it actually may be a financial stressor for some as well. Because as you have a heat pump and you have AC now, which you maybe never had before, it may increase your utility. And so that's one key thing. And the other thing is talking through how do we work with our residents and with our utility companies to think about incentives to help offset some of the costs. So more of that to discuss in the near future about that. The other piece, I wanted to just give a quick update to council. I'm working with Councilmember Trujillo and the city manager to talk through something that's coming up on our next study session, which is in April. We're talking about impact fees. And so we're working on an ordinance to talk about rethinking impact fees prior to the study session so that we can have the framework in place, get the information from the consultants, and be able to put together a motion or ordinance that ultimately moves forward with how we assess and rethink our impact fees. One of the key reasons for that is we keep hearing for years the challenge with building commercial and retail across our city. And one of the key places we keep hearing is about the cost and impact fees that's consistent. It was brought up in a small business task force as well as safety in the small business task force. But I want to make sure that we are following up with some of that work as well as listening to some of our partners in the community. So with that, I yield.
Councilmember Young?
I also had an opportunity to read on National Reading Day, and I thought I was reading to like third graders, so I brought a book for third graders. I had sixth graders, so sixth graders hate me. It's a good thing I'm in a room of people who like me, but they also asked me how old I was. I'm never going back there again. Okay, that's a good compliment. All right, so on a more serious note, I'm a participant in Leadership Denver. our class on Friday was Economic Development Day. So we had an opportunity to receive a full packet from an unknown company. It was an aerospace company, and we presented to a site selector committee as a city. So there were 6 cities represented. I was Nashville, and there were some really important lessons that really came from this for me. When site selectors are looking at cities, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but they are looking at purely the data. They're looking at, will my company be able to, will we have enough power? Will we have enough water? But how quickly can we get through the permitting process? And what kind of impact fees? Will my company be profitable is the bottom line. Where will my people sleep? What kind of housing do you have? Do you have housing for our executive suite? Do we have housing for some of our other employees, like kind of across the line? And it was a very eye-opening experience because we had Nashville, and Nashville is badass. It's super fun, but they don't care. They don't care how cool our city is. They don't care if we have a soccer stadium. They don't care about all the fun things, the mountains. They care. The bottom line is profitability. So I really took a lot from the experience just in terms of being a city council person, creating policy, looking at how we are working with our economic development department and how we are attracting some of these businesses and economic development, but moreover, what kind of businesses are we attracting? Who are we? What kind of community do we want to look to be in 10 years? And frankly, we lost, Nashville lost. And I really think it's okay because I don't think Nashville wants to be the next aerospace engineering town, but Dallas does. We were in competition with Dallas. So they actually created a whole part of their city that's just for that kind of industry. And I've been thinking a lot about this weekend, and it really was a very educational experience for me, just in terms of who we are, who we want to be, what kinds of things do we need to do to attract business. And so I think this impact fee conversation is really, really, really important for us. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to I am really looking forward to our retreat this weekend so we can hash some of this stuff out, have some hard conversations, and really look forward to who we want to be in the next 10 and 20 years.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Young. And it's very much what I have learned over the course of my 6 years is how site selectors look at things versus how we look at things or a resident might look at things. So it's very different. Thank you very much. That's very important. Mayor Douglas, I'll go to you next.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, welcome Councilmember Dukes to the Powerhead, Colorado. Yeah, I heard that you were appointed from that board, Dr. Cog board. And just to know that on the workforce and industrial development, they're looking for qualified contractors. And when it comes to heat pump, the problem with heat pumps is a lot of contractors were putting them in incorrectly. And that caused a lot of problems. There were inspections that were done. They come out, depends on the municipality or so, they would touch it and feel there's heat, but really didn't do a thorough examination of making sure they were properly installed. So this program here is making sure the contractors are also not only licensed, the company that is bidding on the jobs, that they're licensed and certified so that proper installation of these heat pumps can be performed. And we're talking about energy outreach. This program is going to help about 2,000 homes. The other thing, I also talked to Luna, and they're looking at I-270, 270 like they did I-70. and making sure there's contractors in the area within Commerce City that are going to be the first touch points to be contracted for jobs. That's a big lift for Commerce City. Let's see. And then last week went to the COSA, which is a solar and storage, other organization I'm on. And Robert, Clay, and Mac, they were presenters because there were speakers that couldn't make it, and they had called up Dr. Cog to see if they could participate. And they gave a breakdown of the Powerhead, Colorado. Also attended the Memorial Day parade with Councilmember Kim, 60th anniversary. That's huge. And the reason why it's 60th, because we missed a few days. It should be the 62nd, but because of COVID, they couldn't count those 2 years. So that's why it's the time is kind of off for those who are historians and will say, hey, well, no, this is 62, not 60th. And the reason why they had to do a little bit of reset is because of COVID. They couldn't count those 2 additional years. So I will be also presenting next week in those council business. I'm going to fill in the 13th position for Urban Renewal Authority under my mayor's position. I can add on a 13th person when there's the board reaches 12 as far as URA. So just a heads up on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I give my report, City Manager Rogers, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, ma'am. It slipped my mind that at the end of the month, this is your fifth Monday, which is where you typically have had your meetings with Adams 14, and then that subsequent Tuesday with 27J. We have not had any direct conversation with them about holding that fifth Monday for that conversation, but if there was a desire by the body, we would reach out, ask them if there were any topics that they would like to discuss or if they wanted to have this. But I just didn't want to lose sight of it, knowing that this is our last meeting before it gets too tight of a turnaround for the 30th and for the 31st of March.
Does anyone have an opinion on this?
That's all the answer I needed. Thank you.
All right. My report, I mentioned earlier that I participated in the site-specific advisory board meeting for Rocky Mountain Arsenal. These are people who have been on the advisory board for 40 years in some cases. CDPHE was there, EPA was there, the Army was there, and I have to tell you, they have the highest respect from all of these agencies because of the knowledge that they have acquired over all these years about everything that has occurred at the Arsenal and what still needs to happen. Most of their meetings are videotaped. I'll just have to get the link. I was also presenter at the Civic Academy along with Cheryl Karstens. I don't feel like we talked about that, but I'll say it again if I must. Attended the chamber event at Bison Ridge Clubhouse. I'm sorry, at Buffalo. I've lost track of it, at the clubhouse. Also, I was at AC Rep, and the topic was impact fees. I think before we start talking about new ordinances, we really need a good conversation about impact fees because these were all people who work in the development field talking about impact fees. They had slides that showed where Commerce City fell among other communities. I was speaking to someone over the weekend who had just been let go from UPS because of AI. And he said several hundred employees will be let go this week from United Parcel Service. I think it's something that we as a city need to be looking at, which is what I was doing over the weekend when I was thinking about it, that in many ways it's the same thing as oil and gas just transition. It is the AI just transition. I think it's going to impact our lower level employees the most, the ones who make the least amount of money and probably don't have the most skills. And it's going to be a very difficult period and something that we need to be planning for. Also, I wanted to tell Councilmember Guardiola that I did get help with the Access Commerce City app myself. And the reason I got help is because it actually hasn't been working on the Apple Store for a couple of months now. And I was told tonight that they're going to be working with the vendor to fix that. So that was where part of our challenge was coming from. I've used it for a lot of years and I send people to it, and I thought, oh, I can't send people to it if it's not working. So now it is. So, I mean, it will be soon, very soon. The vendor will have it fixed up. Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much. Oh, Mr. Teeter.
I do have a report tonight. I'd like to make a report that one of our community leaders passed away, Mr. Harlow Leeper. He was one of my mentors on the fire department. When I got on in '74, he'd already been on for over 20 years. And he's a past firefighter, past fire chief, past district board president. And in my mind, one of the greatest things that he did was back in the 70s, he started a fundraising organization to build a burn unit in the state of Colorado. At that time, if you got burnt in the state of Colorado bad, you either went to Texas or you went to Utah. And that's something to think about, a volunteer fire department, bringing the burn unit to Colorado. But he was one of the main organizers that got things started there. But he was 95 years old, so he put in a good run. And I also have an executive session that I need to bring up about federal grants, but I need to ask our attorney, Mr. Zarzecki. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch whether I can bring it up under the study session or a council meeting or tonight.
No problem, sir. Technically you cannot have the executive session this evening. Can't have it in a study session. I believe what we were talking about is that you could inform council that you would like to bring an executive session before council in the future to discuss, and we've had this before, but a secondary conversation to seek legal advice with regards to the city's position on our federal grants and approving federal grants. So, which is to answer your question, that would not be right now, but informing council that that's upcoming. And I can help you get that on a notice council
So
business.
it'll be for like the month of April? When's our next council meeting?
When is the next available time that would work naturally?
Naturally, we have obviously April 6th and April 20th as our available dates for that conversation. But given that we don't have a regular meeting now, you could obviously, look to your colleagues to see about amending the call for the special meeting on the 23rd to include that notice council business so that it would then fall on April 6th. That is an option. But if it's not that, then it would be April 20th.
Okay. Well, you guys got me all confused. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to add an executive session to the March 23rd study session.
Do we have motions at study sessions?
No, so I can help you, Councilmember Teeter. I think you would put that on a notice council business item for the future, so then you actually make that motion technically, and then we get it agendized. So it won't be right now, but I can help you get it on a future notice council business.
Okay.
Special meeting on the 23rd.
Okay.
So he could amend the special meeting to include that.
All right, there is a form for you to fill out, Councilmember Teeter, that we all use to make these requests. And it includes things like executive session, it includes it includes whether you want it for a study session or whether you want it for a meeting.
Now, there's a discussion going on here.
I don't know why they're having a discussion because we all operate by the same rules.
But
I think the confusion is the fact that the next meeting happens to be a special meeting, so the city manager is inquiring as to what could practically happen to enable a notice council business item to be on the next council business, or next council agenda, to then get it on a subsequent. So what I was conveying to the city manager is that it would necessitate a revision to the call for the special meeting to include a notice council business item, at which time you all would have an opportunity to opine and vote on it for a future meeting. I will work with Councilmember Teeter because he would need a seconder to be able to put that on as a notice council business item. If he has a seconder, then I will talk to the mayor to recall the special meeting to add that.
All right, may I ask a technical question then? Since we are asked to use the forms that we use on Access Commerce City or See-Click Fix or whatever it is, can we also, during the course of meetings, or have a conversation with you offline and get things included that way?
So what I would recommend to follow protocol is that he would have a seconder, he would submit it.
Okay.
So following the same process.
All right.
At which time, then the mayor has the discretion as to whether or not he would like to amend the special call to include that. So for clarity, he needs a seconder. He should do that with the process that we typically do, which is a formal submission.
Thank you. That's what I was.
and you're saying do that at the next special meeting?
He'll work with you offline, Councilmember Teeter. I was explaining what you were saying. Thank you very much. All right. Mayor Douglas?
Sorry, I have one more report. Just to add on, we went to this CEMCO, which stands for California Expanded Metal Product Company. Councilmember Young, Councilmember Teeter were there. They had a river cutting, and that was a facility that was down in Berman Yard, and they moved up to Commerce City. They took over the old Home Depot building, and which it's like 3 times the size of what they had before. They're doing great business. They were actually shot up 40% in January for their production. And I want to also thank Economic Development, Garrett, Carlos, and Natalia. They were there as well. So thank you.
Anyone else? All righty, thank you. The time is now 9:51.
Confused.
Seeing no further business, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.